The Hogwarts professor mixed into Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1. I'm a Hogwarts professor. 1992. Hogsmeade residential area. Hogsmeade is the only village in the whole of Britain that is full of wizards and has no muggles. It is an ideal place for most wizards to settle down. In a house in the residential area, the sun shines through the windows of the top floor study and fills the entire study. At the same time, the cool breeze of autumn sneaks into the study through the window, dispelling the stuffiness in the study. In the center of the study, there is a brown wood desk. Opposite it, a handsome wizard with soft and light golden long hair is leaning on a chair. Surprisingly, with the wizard as the center, 3 magic books are floating in the air, parallel to the wizard's line of sight. And directly opposite him, a wine-red magic book is floating in the air, half opened, and automatically turns the pages as the wizard gently waves the wand in his hand. And the cover of the book is written detailed explanation of wizard battle spells in the innermost part of the study. There are a large number of small magical enamel specimens, as if they were trophies. In the bookcase on the left wall, there are a lot of magic books, some of which are slightly movable, some are somewhat transparent, and some are surrounded by a thin grey mist. The whole study room exudes a mysterious flavor. At this time, Gilderoy Lockhart looked at the contents of the book, and a flash of thought flashed in his eyes. He muttered to himself, detonating emotions. It turns out that the core of the wandless casting of the armor spell is the instantaneous outbreak of emotions. Then, as if experimenting, Lockhart put the wand next to the desk. Adjusting the frequency of magic power, he made a strange gesture with his right hand, and said in a hurried tone, armor protection. In an instant, a yellow light suddenly appeared on his body and disappeared in an instant. At the same time, a crisp sound came. It can be clearly seen that under the fluctuation of magic power, cracks appeared on the chair where Lockhart was sitting. Seeing this, Lockhart frowned slightly, reached out to pick up the wand, stood up, pointed at the chair and said quickly, restore as before. As if time was going back, the cracks on the chair gradually disappeared, which was quite wonderful. Seeing this scene, Lockhart nodded with satisfaction and said with some emotion, although I have been in this world for almost a month, I have to praise the magic and convenience of magic. Then, he waved his wand lightly, and the bookcase suddenly opened. The books floating in the air were neatly arranged and automatically entered the bookcase and returned to their proper positions. Lockhart was sitting on a chair, putting his wand on the desk, watching silently, with thoughts and exploration in his eyes. To say that the original body was a waste, it was not the case. With the skilled forgetfulness spell, he deceived the entire wizard world and made all wizards believe that he was an adventurer with strong combat power and rich experience. However, when he recalled the spells that Lockhart mastered in his memory, he couldn't help but reveal a helpless look between his eyebrows. He knew nothing about combat spells, but he was quite proficient in life spells, even far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. For example, Lockhart's self-created magic, Lockhart's Shine. The effect is very simple, that is, through magic, one's face is brightened, and one's teeth are whiter, especially in the dark. It can become bright and soft, giving people a sense of intimacy. There are also spells that can sign automatically, and even spells that add background music to oneself. They are all developed by Lockhart himself. He has to admit that the original body is a genius, but he is too eager for quick success. He is worthy of being a student from Hogwarts Ravenclaw College. But when he thought of the battle, he had to start complaining. The opponent even stumbled when casting the most basic armor spell, and was even beaten away by a second-year wizard in the future. He can be called the weakest of the weak. When he thought of this, Lockhart's eyes flashed with helplessness. He was very fortunate that he could live again and be exposed to the mysterious extraordinary power magic. What was even more unexpected to him was that he actually traveled to the familiar Harry Potter world. But when he thought of his identity, Lockhart gently touched his eyebrows, as if he wanted to dispel the helplessness on his face. During the month of traveling through time, he has sorted out the memories in his mind. His current identity is Gilderoy Lockhart, a well-known writer in the wizarding world, a well-known adventurer, and a future professor at Hogwarts. However, when he thought of his identity as an adventurer, a trace of distress flashed in Lockhart's eyes. The so-called adventures were all stolen by the original body through the forgetfulness spell, to steal the memories of other wizards, and then boast it as his own, in order to seek fame. What's more troublesome is that this time he was invited by Dumbledore to enter Hogwarts as a professor of defense against the dark arts, and he had to be careful to guard against Dumbledore's temptation. As for the secret chamber, basilisk, etc. that Hogwarts will encounter this year, Lockhart doesn't take it to heart. A gentleman does not stand under a dangerous wall. The source of the crisis is known, and it can be solved with a little preparation. What's there to worry about? The only worry is Dumbledore's temptation, targeting. The White Devil in the wizarding world, who is famous for his good planning, made himself come to Hogwarts to teach for no reason. Is it possible that he has no idea at all? Lockhart is not stupid. Although there are rumors in the wizarding world that the position of the professor of defense against the dark arts at Hogwarts is cursed by a mysterious person, the reason why rumors are just rumors is that many wizards who teach do leave every year, but most of them also suffer some minor injuries, and the risk of fatality is very rare. Otherwise, how could the original body have the courage to take over the position of professor and swear to let the Daily Prophet promote it? He just wants to make a fortune and make his reputation and resume more glorious. After achieving the goal, he will leave. To be honest, if Lockhart had not accepted Dumbledore's invitation before crossing over, he would have refused long ago. However, when he thought of the library in Hogwarts, Lockhart's eyes rose with a hint of enthusiasm. During this month, although he bought a large number of magic books, he felt more and more that the wizarding world was narrow-minded, backward, and partisan. It is almost impossible to see advanced spells on the market. The books on the market are ordinary magic books, and at most they discuss a spell in more depth. If you want to get in touch with powerful, strange, or even mysterious spells, you are not from a pure-blood family, and you have not signed a service contract with the other party, so you can't get in touch with them at all. Lockhart himself is a half-blood wizard, and his family is not as rich as pure-blood families. Only Hogwarts has magic books collected for centuries. Whether it is life spells, combat spells, or even black magic, or even more bizarre taboo wizard knowledge, they are all involved. More importantly, there are very few restrictions on professors, or even almost no restrictions. This made Lockhart, who was a little obsessed with magic, itchy in his heart, and even jealous. The more he came into contact with magic, the more he felt the wonder, mystery of magic. Especially when he felt the magic power flowing slowly in his body, he could easily resonate with the element between heaven and earth, ignite fire, gather sand into stone, and even reconstruct objects and reverse life. He became more and more fanatical. In his previous life, he was a mortal, with a lifespan of less than 100 years, and he was still a university professor with only the strength to tie a chicken. How lucky he is to encounter magic in this life. With the wonders of magic, not to mention prolonging life, it alone can give him powerful power, enough to make him addicted. Not to mention, as a university professor and researcher, the pursuit of truth is engraved in his bones. Interpreting the whole world from the perspective of magic makes him feel happy, obsessed, and fanatical from the bottom of his heart. As for the risks he may face in the future, since he has made a choice, he will bear the corresponding responsibilities. Moreover, he is not without a way to break the deadlock. Thinking of this, Lockhart exclaimed in his heart, "System. Newcomer and new book, please support with recommendation votes." At the beginning of chapter 2, Odin and Ancient One are paying attention to me. What should I do? Name, Gilderoy Lockhart Constitution. 14 magic points. 910 over 1024. Mastered spells, Lockhart's Shine, fully automatic signature float, luminescent spell, unlocking spell, transfiguration spell, disarming spell, armor spell reputation. 104,552. Recognition of characters, Molly Weirlie, 70 hundredths, Beldrew, 40 hundredths. Possessing items. Seeing the light blue light appearing in front of him, Lockhart's mouth curled up slightly. As a time traveler, he naturally has his own golden finger. He calls this golden finger on his body the reputation lottery system. The biggest function is to draw a lottery through reputation points. The object of the lottery is from the person who has a close relationship with him, or highly recognized by him. The higher the degree of recognition, the easier it is to obtain the other party's most valuable spells, abilities, and even talents. This is also the reason why he has the confidence to face Dumbledore. It is also the capital for him to improve his strength and pursue the truth. It is also his trump card to transform the narrow, backward, and class-fixed wizard world. He was very fortunate that he was a well-known writer in his previous life with a large number of fans. The identity of a well-known writer allowed him to gain a lot of reputation points, and the fans gave him a large number of objects to draw. Although most of his fans are family wizards, and even most of them are ordinary witches, who only master basic spells. But with this month, he kept going in and out of public places, meeting fans, and consuming a lot of reputation points for the lottery. Finally, he mastered all the basic spells that a wizard should master through the system, and got out of the category of a strong man in words. At least there will be no famous scene of being beaten by a second-year wizard. The only pity is that there are very few combat wizards and auras of the Ministry of Magic among his fan group, and there are almost no strong ones. In this month that has just crossed over, it is even more difficult to meet them, let alone draw. However, with his continuous research and scientific practice in this month, he has also mastered some combat spells. He found that his talent in magic is not inferior to his original body, or even stronger. Or, this is the result of the fusion of two souls. And this is not Lockhart's greatest confidence in facing the future dilemma. His confidence lies in Lockhart's vision system, focusing on the lower right corner of the system panel, which reads, "The countdown to world shuttle is 240 minutes. Please prepare for the shuttle." His greatest confidence lies in the world shuttle function of the system. Specifically, every month, he will automatically travel to another world, and then stay in the other world for a month. Then return to the Harry Potter world. The only thing that makes Lockhart a little regretful is that the system can only travel between the two worlds and cannot allow other worlds to be shuttled. In other words, he can travel from the Harry Potter world to the B world, and after staying there for a month, he will automatically return to the Harry Potter world from the B world. Then after staying in the Harry Potter world for a month, he will return to the B world. This cycle repeats itself. This state makes Lockhart have to wonder if this system is avoiding something. Otherwise, why would it jump back and forth between the two worlds for no reason? However, the only thing that made Lockhart feel good was that, after traveling to another world, time would not change at all. You would return from the same second you traveled from. This was true for both worlds. In this way, he would have enough time to study magic and improve his magic level. And if he could get more opportunities in another world and greatly improve his combat power, he would be more confident in facing the future Dumbledore and the future dilemma. This was Lockhart's last trump card. He had been in the Harry Potter world for almost a month now. After 4 hours, he would automatically travel to another world. This was what he had been looking forward to. At night, at Gilderoy Lockhart's home, the countdown to the world travel is 3 minutes. Please prepare for the travel. Lockhart looked at the light screen that appeared in front of him, carrying his magic suitcase, and clenched the wand in his hand, waiting quietly. Time passed by minute, and soon the countdown was about to end. The world travel is about to begin. Please prepare for the travel. World Shuttle countdown 3, 2, 1. The first world shuttle begins, and the new world is anchored. Anchoring, opening a world shuttle channel. Note, a large amount of energy fluctuations have been discovered, which can reduce some energy losses. Do you want to descend? Automatically selected. According to the deduction, it can save some energy, increase energy reserves, provide better services to the host, and will not bring additional negative effects to the host. Allow to descend. About to shuttle the world. Warning, after staying in this world for 30 days, the soul will gradually be branded with the mark of this world. You need to leave this world in time to avoid being infected by the world's breath. 2011, outside the town of New Mexico, the United States, at night. A modified black van is driving forward in the wasteland outside the town. Jane Foster was sitting in the car, holding a camera, looking out the window, as if she had discovered the aurora in the sky not far away. She hurriedly shouted to Daisy Lewis, who was driving next to her, "It's the aurora, hurry up, Daisy, hurry up, Daisy, go, go, go." Eric Selvig, who was sitting in the back, looked at the aurora not far away in surprise, as if he knew how rare the aurora was, and began to urge her. "Daisy, hurry up, maybe your paper will meet you soon." After hearing this, Daisy's face lit up, and she immediately stepped on the accelerator, gripped the steering wheel, and sped towards the aurora. At this moment, Lockhart's eyes went dark, and he suddenly found himself in a colorful energy channel, falling down continuously. He felt a little scared, and subconsciously shouted loudly, "Ah!" Immediately, he found that he was not affected at all, but just a little like taking an elevator and constantly falling, so he quickly calmed down, raised the magic suitcase in his left hand, and gripped the magic wand in his right hand. He secretly cursed the system's unreliable transmission process. Then, Lockhart's face changed. He actually found that a handsome blonde man with a sturdy figure appeared not far away. This made him alert. He raised the wand in his hand and mobilized the magic power in his body as if he would start to attack as long as the other party moved. He was a little confused. There was no energy fluctuation on the other party's body, as if he was a muggle. But this is absolutely impossible. How could an ordinary muggle appear here? Could it be that the other party is also a traveler like him? What a broken system. Could it be that the world shuttle channel can be shared? Lockhart secretly complained, and his expression became more and more vigilant. This is not the moment when fellow villagers meet, and their eyes are full of tears. If it is a traverser, I'm afraid that the first to strike will be the strongest, and the last to strike will suffer. After all, two traversers in one world, let alone other things, how do you say that the benefits are divided? However, Lockhart felt that the face of the blonde man not far away was somewhat familiar, as if he had seen him somewhere before. Moreover, the more he looked at this teleportation scene, the more familiar it looked. Before he could think deeply, Lockhart felt the transmission suddenly pause. He landed safely on the ground, but the blonde man next to him seemed to be unlucky. He seemed to be hit by a car during the landing, and was knocked unconscious. This made Lockhart smile, and he was very glad that he was not the unlucky guy. However, seeing this scene, Lockhart felt that this scene was a little familiar, so he held the wand in his hand tightly, watched silently, and kept searching the memory in his mind. After the car braked urgently, a middle-aged man and two young women got out. The three of them seemed to be a little panicked, because they hit someone with their car. Then, Lockhart heard the other party shouting, "Jane, legally speaking, this is all your fault. Don't talk about this, Daisy, hurry up and get the medical kit." Soon, the sturdy blonde man who was knocked unconscious by the car quickly woke up, stood up and looked around, shouting, "Hammer, hammer, mime Jolny." Then he looked up to the sky and shouted, "Heimdall, I know you are watching, send me back quickly." Seeing this scene in front of him, and hearing the blonde man's shouting, Lockhart instantly knew which world he was in. Jane, Heimdall, Mjolnir, Hammer, where else can it be except the Marvel world? Lockhart's face changed, and he cursed in his heart. How could he come to such a high-risk world as Marvel and run into the plot of Thor 1? This is troublesome. Now this scene is not only being watched by the god King Odin, but also by the Ancient One. After all, who would ignore the son of Odin, the father of the gods, coming to Earth? Question: what if Odin and the Ancient One are paying attention to it at the same time at the beginning? Please collect it. Please recommend it. Please invest. Please read it. Please read it. Chapter 3. Thor is angry, but cannot express himself. At the same time, in the distant Asgard, Heldarm stood on the Rainbow Bridge, looking at the transmission channel that was opening, frowned slightly, and said to Odin, the father of the gods next to him in a deep voice, "God King, the energy consumption of the Rainbow Bridge has increased significantly, because other humans unexpectedly appeared in Thor's transmission channel. How should we deal with it?" Odin stared at the colorful transmission channel built by the Rainbow Bridge, as if he could see Lockhart, who had just appeared, holding a magic wand, and was very vigilant, and frowned slightly. Perhaps he felt that the insects that appeared at this moment were a bit annoying, so the eternal spear of Ogner in his hand began to emit a faint golden light, and Heldam felt a fascinating breath coming towards him. Suddenly, an emerald green light suddenly appeared, floating in front of Odin, constantly jumping slightly, as if conveying some information. Heldam stared at the green light, a trace of vigilance flashed in his eyes, holding the sword of the rainbow bridge in his hand, as if he wanted to attack. Then he suddenly felt that the eternal spear began to be silent, and then, a faint smile floated on the face of God King Odin, and said to him, "Don't worry about this human, someone will take care of it." After saying that, he turned and left. Loki next to him was a little confused about the conversation between his father and Heldam, but he didn't think much about it, and followed his father Odin to leave the rainbow bridge. Facing the secret peeping of the Ancient One or Odin, Lockhart's eyes flashed a trace of worry, and his thoughts kept turning in his mind, thinking quickly about solutions. His identity from another world must have been exposed. Even if Odin didn't know this, the Ancient One was definitely clear about it. However, he didn't take action directly now, which showed that the Supreme Sorcerer still had a certain tolerance. And what he needed to do most now was, the thinking revealed in Lockhart's eyes constantly improved the plan that emerged in his mind. At the same time, Professor Eric next to him carefully looked at the blonde man in the emerald green robe in front of him. Although he was a little envious of his handsome face, this outfit, no matter how you look at it, doesn't look like a modern man. He couldn't help but feel surprised. But there was no time to think about it, so he hurried forward and asked nervously, "Who are you? You saw what happened just now. It was a complete accident." Lockhart looked at Eric Selvig, who was a little nervous in front of him, and raised his mouth corners, revealing his white teeth, showing a gentle smile, and waved his wand secretly, Lockhart's shining. In an instant, Eric's eyes lit up, and he felt that the face of Lockhart in front of him was very kind. It was like an old friend who had not seen each other for many years. Then, Lockhart touched his left shoulder with his right hand, bent down slightly, and performed a standard wizard etiquette, and asked elegantly and calmly, "Hello, I'm Gilderoy Lockhart, winner of the 3rd class medal of the Order of Merlin, honorary member of the Anti-Dark Magic League, professor of defense against the dark arts at Hogwarts. Because of an accident with space magic, I accidentally drifted to your place. May I ask where I'm now?" At the same time, Lockhart raised his wand slightly, bright and splendid. In an instant, a ball of light appeared in the air, emitting a soft white light, illuminating the nearby area. Jane, Daisy, and Eric saw this scene, and opened their mouths slightly in surprise. Thor, who was standing next to him, saw this and seemed to have thought of something. He ran to Lockhart in a somewhat savage manner, and shouted in a savage tone, "Mage of Midgard, I'm Thor Odinson, the son of Odin. I command you to take me back to Asgard." Lockhart frowned slightly when he heard Thor's savage tone, and his face looked ugly. A trace of anger rose in his heart, but he quickly calmed down. The other party was the son of Odin, and had not yet become the real god of thunder. Naturally, his attitude was savage, and he did not take ordinary people seriously. Although Thor's tone of treating him as a slave made him angry, considering the other party's identity was a bit tricky, he could not be ruthless directly, and could only teach him a lesson. Although Odin might be watching now, he should not take action, as long as his life was not endangered. Besides, if he did not teach him a lesson, the other party would really treat him as a slave. Thinking about this, Lockhart picked up the wand in his hand, and pointed at Thor, "Quickly imprison." In an instant, a white halo appeared at the top of the wand, quickly wrapped around Thor's body, as if tying him up, controlling Thor's movements. Thor on the opposite side seemed to feel that he was imprisoned, motionless, and directly cursed. "Human, tell me your name. You are disrespecting the future master of the 9 kingdoms. You are more insidious than the ogre's worm was silent." Before Thor finished cursing, Lockhart directly cast a silent spell, allowing Thor to open his mouth continuously, but no sound came out. He was angry but couldn't vent, and he couldn't vent his anger. Thor's face flushed red, as if he had suffered such a big loss for the first time. Seeing this, Lockhart's face floated with a faint smile. He liked the scene of the other party being unable to vent his anger and unable to get what he wanted. The angrier Thor was, the happier Lockhart was. He was the one who would take revenge when he had a grudge and complain when he had a grudge. He couldn't do it, but if he didn't teach them a lesson, he wouldn't be Lockhart. Then, he turned his head and looked at Jane, Daisy and the other two who were surprised and terrified. He waved his wand lightly and circled around. A pale white halo appeared in the air and gradually spread, soothing their hearts. He showed his white teeth and said gently, "Okay, let's start the topic just now." Jane, Daisy and Eric looked at the pale white light around them and were surprised to find that they were much calmer in their hearts and even showed a faint joy. It made them feel a little surprised. After hearing what Lockhart said in front of him, Daisy immediately exclaimed, "Is this magic?" Seeing the surprised voice of the little girl in front of him, Lockhart nodded with a smile and said lightly, "Yes, it is magic. May I ask where this is?" After Eric heard it, he was about to reply when he heard Daisy ask excitedly, "This is New Mexico, Mr. Magician. What is your name? Where are you from? Can I learn magic?" Seeing Daisy's excitement and a lot of questions coming out of her mouth at once, Lockhart quickly picked up his wand and made a gesture to silence her. After seeing this, Daisy slowly stopped asking questions with some regret. Seeing this, Professor Eric at the back stepped forward and said in a deep voice, "Mr. Magician, Daisy was a little too excited just now. Please forgive me." Then he pointed at the three of them and introduced them. "My name is Eric Selvig, and the two next to me are my students, Jane Foster and Daisy Louise. This is the United States, New Mexico. The nearest town is about 13 kilometers away. You can choose to take our car to the town and then make arrangements." Hearing this, Lockhart nodded. "Okay, Mr. Eric, you can call me Mr. Lockhart or Professor Lockhart." As he spoke, Lockhart waved his wand lightly, and a small gold bar floated in front of everyone, floated into Eric's hand, and said softly, "This is your award. Thank you for troublesome this journey." Seeing the gold bar in his hand, Eric reached out and squeezed it subconsciously. Judging from his past experience, the real possibility is higher than 80%, so he hurriedly said, "No, it's too expensive, Professor Lockhart. It won't cost that much." Hearing Eric's reply, Lockhart smiled faintly. "It's okay. For us wizards, gold bars are not precious. If you feel it's precious, you can give me some of your currency. I think I may need it in the future." Lockhart blinked. Then, without waiting for Eric's reply, he smiled at Jane and Daisy and said, "Okay, let's go back to the town now. I like places with a civilized atmosphere." As he said that, he waved to Eric, indicating that they could set off. Eric sighed softly and put away the gold bars in his hand. He was not as easily obsessed with his students as Daisy. It was not known whether it was a blessing or a curse to meet such a wizard with extraordinary means. However, after the communication just now, this wizard should be considered a relatively polite and principled positive person. Otherwise, he would not communicate with him patiently and give him gold bars as a reward. With his mind turning, he took Lockhart to their car. "Please collect. Please recommend!" Exclamation mark. Seeking investment. Seeking follow-up reading. Chapter 4. How to survive under the watchful eyes of the ancient boss. He looked at Eric who was leading the way, and then at Thor who was imprisoned by his spell. He felt the other party's murderous gaze. With a chuckle, Lockhart waved his wand lightly, Wingardium Leviosa. With a levitation spell, the imprisoned Thor floated up. Then he got into the car with Eric. Jane, Daisy and others saw it, but did not ask. Or, they also felt a little guilty for hitting someone with their car just now, or they were curious about Thor's identity, and Lockhart naturally would not explain too much. After everyone got in the car, Eric drove. Lockhart sat in the front seat. Thor, Jane, and Daisy sat in the back. After stepping on the accelerator and starting the engine, the car slowly drove towards the town. Sitting in the car, Lockhart let out a sigh of relief. He was under a lot of psychological pressure just now. He was 100% sure that Odin and Ancient One had definitely noticed him. All his actions just now were to establish a personality. He said that he was harmless and only arrived in the Marvel world by accident. This was the best solution he could think of. When facing an unknown person, if he doesn't take action directly, then he will try to find out information. He can also use this to establish the image of a white wizard, a scholar and a professor. After all, no matter which world, scholars and professors should be positive figures in the eyes of the public. Well, the target of his imitation is Dumbledore. Therefore, even when facing Thor's curse, it was just a small lesson, and he didn't do anything cruel. I hope to temporarily dispel the doubts of Ancient One or Odin. Otherwise, if he behaved inappropriately just now, or showed very evil behavior, who knows, or thunderbolt suddenly appeared in the sky and struck him, or a portal with sparks appeared in front of him, and several wizards came out. Under the banner of eliminating invaders, he was killed. Lockhart, he couldn't cry, even if he wanted to. Otherwise, although he would not kill the witnesses directly, he would definitely capture the divine thoughts, search for information, and then send a set of forgetfulness spell packages. I believe that his proficiency will never let anyone find out anything unusual. At most, these muggles will have migraines, but he doesn't care about that. His moral level is very flexible. Now that he is safely in the car, in a sense, the Ancient One or Odin should allow his existence. This naturally made Lockhart breathe a sigh of relief and relax a little. However, acting must continue. Before his strength reaches a certain level, he must work hard to maintain his current personality. Professor Lockhart, I just heard you introduce yourself as a professor at Hogwarts. I feel that you are knowledgeable. However, I don't seem to have heard of this school. Can you give a brief introduction? Eric, who was driving, handed Lockhart a bottle of mineral water and asked curiously. After Lockhart took it, he was very cautious and secretly released a magic to detect poisons. After finding nothing unusual, he unscrewed the bottle cap, took a sip, and said lightly, Hogwarts, this is our own school for wizards, which is dedicated to training young wizards, and I'm a professor who specializes in teaching defense against the dark arts. Lockhart said with some pride, and then continued to add, dark magic is very evil and very deadly magic. Hearing this, Jane in the back asked with some envy, then Professor Lockhart, do you think we can learn magic? Hearing this, Lockhart smiled and shook his head, and said lightly, learning magic requires talent and bloodline. 99.9% of people are muggles, who cannot learn magic, and don't even know the existence of wizards. As if he had expected their doubts, Lockhart continued, muggles refer to people who have no talent for magic. It is the usual name for us wizards. Hearing this, Jane, Daisy, and Eric all showed regretful expressions on their faces, and Thor next to them snorted coldly, but no sound came out. Well, the silent spell is still not lifted. After chatting for a while, Daisy in the back took out a piece of bread and a few bags of snacks, and handed them to Lockhart, who was sitting in front with some attentiveness. Professor Lockhart, this is my favorite snack. It tastes good. Please try it. After that, Daisy tore open a bag of potato chips and handed it to Lockhart. Seeing this, Lockhart smiled, reached out to take a piece and tasted it, nodded slightly, and said with some admiration, it tastes delicious. Thank you Miss Daisy for sharing. Since Miss Daisy has shared, then I will also share some snacks of our wizards. As he said, Lockhart waved his wand lightly, and a large number of various snacks floated out of the space bag. There were milk candies flashing blue light, flaming chocolates, strange tasting beans of various colors, and frog-shaped chocolate frogs, etc. When the snacks floated in front of everyone, Lockhart introduced, this is strange flavored beans. After eating, various strange flavors will appear randomly. This is moonlight milk candy. After eating it, your eyes will glow blue. There are also chocolate frogs, crucible cakes, dragon milk cheese, etc. You can all try it. They all taste good. As he said, Lockhart looked at Thor who was imprisoned behind him, thought for a while, and said softly, Mr. Thor, I don't know where Asgard is. However, I can unlock the magic now, but you must promise not to make trouble again. Otherwise don't blame me for imprisoning you again. If you agree, nod your head. Thor, who had calmed down, thought about it after hearing it, and nodded helplessly. Seeing this, Lockhart held the wand against Thor and cast a counter spell. Soon, Thor found that he could move again and made sounds, with a hint of joy in his eyes. Then, as if he had thought of something, he snorted at Lockhart, but did not move. Jane and Daisy, who were standing next to him, did not pay much attention to Thor's behavior. They were tasting the magic snacks with great interest. Daisy had just eaten a piece of moonlight milk candy and found that her eyes were glowing blue, which was very interesting. So she tasted the strange flavored beans with great interest. Just after tasting one, her face changed slightly and turned red. She quickly said, "It's so spicy, so spicy." As she said that, she picked up the mineral water next to her and took a big sip. Jane smiled after seeing this. She had just eaten several strange flavored beans in a row and found that they tasted beef, chicken, and another taste that she couldn't describe. In short, the taste was okay. The actions of the two made Thor and Eric hesitate for a moment, and they also began to taste the magic snacks shared by Lockhart. After all, enjoying food is the commonality of all carbon-based life forms. For a moment, the whole car was filled with laughter and the atmosphere was much more harmonious. Even Thor no longer looked cold to Lockhart. In a small town in New Mexico, in the house rented by Eric, Jane and the others, everyone sat on the sofa in the living room. Daisy brought a glass of water and handed it to Gilderoy Lockhart, who was sitting on the sofa, and asked curiously, "Professor Lockhart, can you tell me more about your adventures?" Jane and Professor Selvig next to them also pricked up their ears, their eyes full of curiosity. Although Thor's eyes were full of disdain, he also listened patiently. He is just a mortal now and doesn't know what he should do. Although he thinks this wizard is nothing big, but he is very good at telling stories. Seeing this, Lockhart's mouth curled up slightly. He took a sip of water from the glass and said leisurely, "I never hesitate to share my adventures with others." As he said that, he began to share his experience of fighting gals, which was vivid and fascinating. Well, it was that he stole the memories of other wizards through memory spells. But it was just a little exaggerated and rendered more evil. This, Lockhart can do it easily. After all, the famous writer in the wizarding world is not a boast. Well, as he was talking, an idea suddenly emerged in his mind. Should I write another book called Lockhart Surviving in Another World? The thought turned. The corners of his mouth rose, and he buried it in his heart, and continued to share his experience with Eric and others. Through a gentle smile, friendly communication, magical snacks, and wonderful magic. After a whole set of combined punches, the relationship with everyone has obviously risen to a high level. Including Thor, the original hostility has been resolved a lot. Well, when Gui sees this scene, he should think that I'm an experienced and righteous white wizard. It's better to have a little good impression. Later, let him learn the magic of Kamar-Taj. He is quite interested in the magic of the Marvel world. It seems to have a completely different development direction from Harry Potter. The thought turned, and Lockhart's voice of explanation was slightly higher, as if revealing a hint of excitement. Of course, it's just a thought. Lockhart doesn't believe that knowledge can be obtained by scanning the face. Trading is the best means. Please collect it. Please recommend it. Chapter 5. The Magical Surprise of Lockhart. After talking for a while, Lockhart used the excuse of needing to rest and returned to his room. After entering his room, he quickly closed his door. He quickly walked to the bed, opened his magic suitcase, got into it, and cast an illusion spell to hide the suitcase. Well, this is the magic suitcase he prepared specifically for this world travel. It has a large space and is worth a lot of money. Although the Ministry of Magic does not allow it to be sold, he still obtained it through the black market. Although he paid thousands of gold galleons, he was quite satisfied with the practicality of the magic suitcase. It was filled with magic books, magic potions, and even black magic items that he had stored. After entering the magic suitcase, Lockhart walked down the stairs and entered his room. Looking at the spacious space, Lockhart nodded with satisfaction, and then quickly walked to the desk on the left and looked at a platypus-like, Snow White sniff in a small cage on the desk. His eyes were full of surprise. The system actually allows life to be carried through travel. This was beyond his expectation. In his expectation, the system would most likely allow inanimate objects to be teleported, but he was not sure about living things. Therefore, he bought in a floor as an experimental subject to see whether the system allowed the scope of carrying items after the world shuttle. Now it seems that the scope allowed by the system is very wide. This made Lockhart full of surprises, allowing living things to shuttle so that there would be more operations later. A picture emerged in his mind. When facing the enemy in the future, he could open the box and release various magical animals such as fire dragons and thunderbirds. When he thought of this, he couldn't suppress the excitement in his heart. Even wizards are living things. The thought just flashed through his mind, and Lockhart sank it in his heart. The world that the system shuttled to was actually the Marvel world, which was beyond his expectation. The Marvel world is much more dangerous than Harry Potter. Although it is full of opportunities, the world-destroying disasters at any time make Lockhart scratch his head. With his small body, if he is involved in it, he may be killed if he is not careful. So, he urgently needs to improve his strength now. Now, the easiest way is to draw a reputation lottery for Thor. If you can get Thor's powerful Thunder Force, you can protect yourself in the Marvel world and dominate the Harry Potter world. When you think of this, Lockhart's eyes flash with a hint of heat. Immediately, he called the system. Name: Gilderoy Lockhart Constitution. 14 magic points. 970 over 1024. Mastered spells: Lockhart's Shine, fully automatic signature levitation spell, luminescence spell, unlocking spell, transfiguration spell, disarming spell, armor spell. Reputation 104,552. Character recognition: Harry Potter world, Molly Weasley, 70/100ths, Beldaroo, 40/100ths. Marvel world, Jane Foster, 30/100ths, Thor Odinson, 10/100ths. Daisy, possessing items, wand, magic suitcase. Lockhart set his eyes on the light grey name, and a thought flashed in his eyes. Thor Odinson, 10/100ths. Thor's recognition of himself is currently low, which is not surprising to Lockhart. After all, the long-term confinement and the silent spell just now, no matter who it is, will definitely be annoyed. Although communication and sharing of food reduced a lot of hostility, it definitely did not rise to the level of goodwill. Thor did not hate him extremely, which was already a good character. Of course, if this happened again, Lockhart would still choose to give Thor the same set meal. Just now, Thor was like a child, willful, reckless, and outspoken. He even cursed his own father before. Lockhart thought he could not get the recognition of such a Thor. Therefore, he would suppress his arrogance first, and when he needed help later, there would be a chance for recognition to increase. In short, he was not in a hurry. As long as the mind does not slip, there are always more solutions and problems. Immediately, Lockhart thought about it, repeatedly considered his plan, slightly modified it, and felt that there was no big problem. He continued to read the book Dark Power, Self-Defense Guide in the study. At the same time, practice spells. Although you can rely on the system to quickly improve your magic ability, you can only truly master it if you have mastered the corresponding magic knowledge and understood the essence of the spell. As he continued to practice the disarming spell, he looked at the dazzling red light in front of him. Lockhart felt more and more that something was wrong. Or rather, he had noticed something was wrong at the beginning, but he just didn't think deeply about it. He found that the power of the disarming spell had increased by about 3 times. My god, the same magic power was not so strong in the Harry Potter world, and it was much easier to cast. Even the duration of the disarming spell was extended by 3 seconds. What does this mean? During the 3 seconds of staying, he can freely control the spell to attack the enemy from all directions. Only powerful wizards can do this in Harry Potter. In the Marvel world, wizards like him can actually reach such a level. Could it be that the Marvel world is magic, a blessed place for wizards? Or, the Harry Potter world has restricted magic? Lockhart thought deeply, put forward several conjectures, and then put them in his heart. It's useless to think more now. I'll go back to the Harry Potter world and study it slowly later. He now needs to improve his strength to survive under the hands of the Destroyer. Fighting side by side with Thor is the best way to gain his recognition. Although it's a bit risky, Lockhart is willing to take a gamble. The next day, early in the morning, Lockhart woke up from his bed and cast a spell to hide his suitcase. He opened the door and walked down the stairs slowly. Looking at the empty and even rather messy living room, he raised his eyebrows. It seems that, after he left last night, this group of people were not idle. Then, with a thought, he waved his wand lightly, and in a flash, the sundries in the living room suddenly floated into the air, and then moved in a very orderly manner, and returned to their own positions. The blanket was automatically stacked neatly on the sofa, the waste paper took the initiative to go into the trash can, and the unfinished water cup floated to the bathroom, poured into the sink, and then returned to the wooden table. For a while, the whole living room made a ding-dong sound. Although the sound was not loud, it also made some people who were sleeping start to wake up. Professor Selvig woke up in this way. Attracted by the sound, he walked out of the door and saw the living room below automatically cleaning up the sundries. He opened his mouth in surprise and exclaimed, "Magic, it was really amazing." In his impression, a magician should gather fireballs, attract thunder, and even summon demons. But this scene now was beyond his imagination, and he couldn't help but feel envious. Convenient. It was too convenient. Well, after a spell, he didn't have to do any housework. It was simply the ability that an old man like him dreamed of. Soon, all the debris was cleared up, and he saw Lockhart waving his wand and drawing several circles in a row, chanting a spell. Then, a silver-white light spread from the top of Lockhart's wand to the surroundings. He saw with his own eyes that as the white light spread, all the stains were refreshed, as if they had never appeared. Then he saw Lockhart look up at him and waved. "Please collect. Please recommend. Exclamation mark. Please invest. Please read again." Chapter 6 Mysterious Rune Thor's Hammer. Oh my god, Professor Lockhart, I didn't expect that food made with magic tastes so good. Sitting at the dining table, Lockhart smiled when he heard Daisy's flattering words. Although his original body was useless in combat, he lived a very refined life. Apart from other things, he mastered the magic spells of life very well, and even created his own spells. For Lockhart, who has the memory of his original body, he can master it quickly with a little practice. Excuse me, we wizards rarely cook by hand, but use magic spells. So it may taste better. At this point, Lockhart changed the subject, looking at Thor who was eating breakfast next to him, and asked with a smile, "Mr. Thor, I heard you say you were from Asgard yesterday. I wonder if Asgard has magic?" After hearing this, Thor patted his chest and said proudly, "Lockhart, our Asgard rules the 9 realms, so we naturally have advanced magic. My mother, Queen Frigga, is the #1 magician in the 9 realms." At this point, Thor's mood suddenly became low. Maybe he was sad, because he recalled that he was expelled by his father, and it was difficult for him to see his mother again. Seeing this, Lockhart stopped extending the topic. He just left a seed, waiting to be detonated later. As for Queen Frigga being the first wizard in the 9 realms, Lockhart laughed. Does this mean that he does not take Master Ancient One seriously? Immediately, he had a simple chat with Eric and others about magic. And Jane, who was next to him, seemed to feel Thor's sadness and began to comfort him slowly. After breakfast, Lockhart changed into a casual suit again, stood in front of the gate, said a few words to Eric and others, and then opened the door and left. After entering the town, he found a few passers-by and asked about the nearest real estate agency. After learning the information, he walked straight in. As a wizard, he needs an independent space, especially when he practices magic. It is impossible for him to practice inside the magic suitcase all the time. It would be troublesome if something was destroyed. He needs to rent a house and practice inside the house. The space inside the magic suitcase is just for emergency living. He found a real estate agency, proposed his conditions, left his contact information, and then turned and left. Well, he got some cash and mobile phones from Eric through a transaction yesterday. As for the driver's license, ID card and the like, Lockhart looked at a leather bag on his waist and smiled. The certificate with the confusion charm attached will be believed by any muggle who sees it, even if it is blank. Then, he went to a nearby bar, ordered a glass of water, slowly sat down in the seat next to the window, and gradually waited for the sound to come from his ears. As a wizard who pursues the truth, he never drinks. Soon, a sound came from his ears. "Smith, you can drink less than an ant. You fell down after 3 glasses yesterday. It's really embarrassing for us. Yesterday was an accident. Let's compete today to see who drinks less." "Jaleth, did you hear that?" A satellite fell to the east of the town, and many people went to watch. What satellite? Did you hear it wrong? I remember others said there was a hammer. Really? What's so special about a hammer? I have a lot of hammers at home. I tell you, that hammer is not ordinary. Lockhart instantly locked onto the keyword hammer from the chaotic voices and quickly saw the two white men in leather pants who were discussing. His eyes lit up. He came to the bar for a purpose. Immediately, he sipped the water in the glass, stood up, and shouted to the bar counter waiter not far away, "Bring 2 bottles of whiskey to this table." Then, he pointed to the white man who had just talked. After hearing this, the two looked at Lockhart with some confusion. Who is this person? Facing the doubts in the two people's eyes, Hart smiled and explained, "These 2 bottles of whiskey are my treat for you two. Nothing special, I just want to know more about the hammer you just talked about. Can you tell me where it is exactly?" Soon, through 2 bottles of whiskey, Lockhart got accurate information about the hammer. After a slight greeting, he turned and walked out of the bar. East of the New Mexico town, where Thor's hammer fell, a large number of people gathered there, noisy and boiling. Lockhart looked at the huge meteorite crater that appeared not far away and sighed slightly. Thor's hammer is not weak in power, just falling. It created a meteorite crater out of thin air. If it were him, he might have to use most of his magic power and cast a transformation spell to achieve such an effect. Then, he walked towards the depression. Walking into the crowd, with his handsome appearance, he quickly attracted the attention of many girls and women. However, it seemed that Lockhart exuded a cold aura, so he didn't dare to contact him too much. At this moment, a strong white man stepped on the dirt below to gain leverage, and then flexed the muscles of his arms. He clenched the handle of Thor's hammer Mjolnir, gritted his teeth, and pulled it up with all his strength. Unfortunately, even though he used all his strength and his face turned red, Mjolnir didn't even move. Lockhart carefully examined Thor's hammer, looking at Mjolnir who didn't move at all, carefully sensing it, and sighed slightly. It is indeed a divine weapon. If it didn't have the characteristic that others couldn't pull it out, I'm afraid it would be just an ordinary hammer in the eyes of everyone. As a wizard, he didn't feel any energy at all. This shows a mystery of Thor's hammer. Immediately, after waiting for others to give up, Lockhart stood in front of Thor's hammer, imitating the people in front of him, and pulled it up with force. Unfortunately, it didn't move at all. Then he stretched out his wand, tapped Thor's hammer, and quickly chanted the spell, "Appear." After a spell, a faint blue light flashed, but disappeared in an instant. Seeing this scene, Lockhart's breathing became a little rapid. He looked up at the muggles around him, frowned slightly, waved his wand, and pointed it to the sky. Confused the audience. In Lockhart's eyes, a transparent wave spread from all around, covering the muggles around him. In the eyes of the onlookers, the handsome man in front of him had left, replaced by another white man. The action was the same as before, trying to pull up the hammer in his hand. At this moment, Lockhart cast magic and cast a layer of illusion. He began to study the Thor's hammer in front of him. Appear, appear, appear. 10 consecutive appearing spells fell on Thor's hammer. In an instant, Thor's hammer burst into a dazzling deep blue light, revealing a large number of mysterious runes that revealed a mysterious atmosphere. This made Lockhart, who was observing carefully, brighten his eyes instantly and breathe faster. Chapter 7, Confusion Spell Encounter with Carlson. If Lockhart guessed correctly, the mysterious rune just now should be the rune unique to Asgard. It is also the foundation of their forging artifacts. Seeing this, Lockhart's heart suddenly warmed up, and he reached out and took out a notebook and a feather pen. Just when he was about to copy the rune down, he found that the rune had disappeared. Seeing this, Lockhart was not angry. He cast 10 more revealing spells to make the rune appear again on Thor's hammer. While it was still there, he quickly copied the rune into the notebook. This is a rune for making Thor's hammer. Even if he doesn't understand the meaning of the rune now, he can estimate its value. If it is placed in the Harry Potter world, it will definitely set off a wave of enthusiasm. Because with only his limited knowledge, he can find that there is a huge gap between the ancient runes in the Harry Potter world and the ancient runes in the Harry Potter world. In fact, they are 2 completely different runes. Even a wizard like Dumbledore will definitely be interested in exploring it. After all, it is very likely that it contains another direction for the development of magic. Although the runes disappeared again before Lockhart finished copying them. But as Lockhart cast a large number of revealing spells, the runes continued to appear and disappear in the cycle, and finally the copying was completed completely. Looking at the dense runes on the notebook in his hand, a hint of joy flashed in Lockhart's eyes. Although he couldn't understand the meaning behind the runes, he could slightly test the function of the runes by carving the runes with magic. Of course, it would be best if there was a teacher who could tell him the meaning of the runes. When he thought of this, Thor, who had well-developed limbs, appeared in Lockhart's mind. Immediately, he shook his head. He always felt that Thor didn't seem to be good at runes, but Loki might be. When he looked at Loki, he looked like a standard wizard. On the other hand, Thor looked like a reckless warrior from left to right. As for warriors, Lockhart laughed when he talked about learning. Before he could think deeply, Lockhart could hear a lot of complaints. Who are you? Why are you chasing us away? Yes, this is a public place. Why? Sorry, I'm from the FBI. It involves national security here. Please leave in an orderly manner. Lockhart looked up at the muggles in police uniforms coming towards him, especially the slightly bald, slightly fat white man in a black suit in the front. He shook his head slightly. He was still preparing to study the runes in comparison with Thor's hammer. As a result, he met people from S.H.I.E.L.D. If I guessed correctly, the leader was Coulson, who was known as the head of the novice village in the Marvel world. But he was not in a hurry. He wanted to study Thor's hammer at any time. A disembodiment spell was cast, just like Loki in the original plot. Who could find him? Thinking about it, Lockhart turned around and walked out with the crowd, cancelling the illusion at the same time. Wait a minute, stop. Lockhart, who was walking slowly forward, suddenly heard a voice behind him and pinched the wand hidden in his sleeve. Turning around, with a puzzled look on his face, he asked Coulson, who was walking towards him, "Sir, what do you want me to do?" A trace of doubt flashed in Coulson's eyes. He was not sure if he was dazzled. It seemed that he had not seen this man before. With his handsome appearance, he should have some impression of him. But he was not sure if he remembered it wrong. So Coulson asked tentatively, "Hello, FBI agent, please show me your valid ID." Hearing Coulson's puzzled tone, Lockhart calmly took out the magic leather bag across his waist. He opened it, handed it to Coulson, and said calmly, "Okay, sir, take a look. If there is no problem, then I will leave first." After Coulson took it, he looked at it carefully and found that there seemed to be no problem. He asked a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent next to him to use his mobile phone to enter the ID number and verify it. There was still no problem. However, he always felt as if he had missed something, but he had no clue. He could only secretly remember the name on the ID. Gilderoy Lockhart. After pondering Lockhart's name, Coulson handed it to Lockhart, smiling and saying gently, "Okay, sir, you can go now. I'm sorry to bother you before." Lockhart took the magic leather bag handed over by Coulson very calmly and turned to leave. After walking a distance, Lockhart exhaled lightly. He just cast a range of confusion spells in secret. The magic leather bag he bought itself comes with a small range of confusion spells. No matter who sees the ID information in the bag, they will see the most real information in their impression. No matter how to detect, in their cognition, the identity is real. However, just now Coulson asked the agent next to him to perform a machine test, which immediately made Lockhart tremble in his heart. It's okay for you to see it, and even the machine shows that the confusion spell can block the picture. But it's precisely the sound that the confusion spell on the magic leather bag will not block. Because the maker didn't consider the problem of sound at all. After all, the technology in the Harry Potter world is not that advanced, and most of them just use human eyes to check the authenticity of the documents. Therefore, the creator cast a confusion spell on the bag, and the key point is to confuse the picture. Let the viewers within a certain range believe it, even if there is a blank certificate in front of them. Therefore, just in case, Lockhart had to secretly release a confusion spell for sound. In case of mistaken identity, the sound of no such person can also be blocked. However, he was lucky that there would be no sound prompt when the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent verified the identity. Despite this, Lockhart still planned to have someone make a magic bag that can confuse sound and picture after returning to the Harry Potter world. The technology in the Marvel world is much more advanced, so he had to be cautious. The next day, Professor Lockhart, we will be in the town for this month. Remember to come to us at any time if you have any questions. Eric stood in the living room, looking at Gilderoy Lockhart with a briefcase, and said softly, "Yes, Professor, remember to come to our place when you are free." "Yes, Professor, don't forget us." Jane and Daisy also said very enthusiastically, "Okay, I won't forget. Anyway, it's not far away. You can come to my rented house when you are free. I won't leave here for a while. If anything happens, remember to find me," Lockhart said to Eric, Thor and the other four with a smile and gentleness. After that, he took his suitcase and walked towards his rented house. Yesterday afternoon, he went to see the house with the agent. He felt that the environment was okay, so he rented it. He talked to Eric and others about it in the evening. So there was this scene this morning. Eric looked at Lockhart's leaving figure, and there was a trace of envy in his eyes. Magic extraordinary power, staying with Professor Lockhart these days. He fully felt the charm of magic, gently waved the magic wand in his hand, gave things vitality, and automatically completed the corresponding tasks. It was really amazing, breaking his cognition, and beyond his imagination. However, when he saw Thor whispering to Jane, Eric sighed. These days, after everyone communicated with each other, he also knew Thor's identity. Son of the god King Odin, Thor the thunder god. Although everyone thought it was a joke at first, Thor emphasized it again and again, and he told many details about Asgard. More importantly, there was already a wizard who only appeared in fantasy around them. He had broken their cognition. So, they gradually believed what Thor said. As a result, Eric found that Jane and Thor were getting more and more excited, especially when talking about the stars. They were often stuck together. With his many years of life experience, he couldn't help but sigh. The son of the king of gods talked about love with mortals. From the myths and legends, which mortal really got the good results? Apart from anything else, one has lived for thousands of years, and can even live for tens of thousands of years. And the other has a lifespan of less than 100 years. What good results can there be? Please collect. Please recommend votes. Please invest. Please read again. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8 Ancient Runes. In a small villa on the east side of the town. The hall on the first floor of the villa was in a mess, with broken glass, paper, wood, and some suspected metal objects scattered around the living room, looking as if it had experienced a war. But the center of the hall was clean. At this time, Lockhart stood in the center of the hall, holding a magic wand, sliding along a strange trajectory in the air. A deep blue light gradually emerged in the air as the magic wand slid. Soon, a rune outlined by blue light formed in the air. Rune. Click, click, click. The moment the rune was formed, fine lightning suddenly appeared in the air, making a crisp sound. At the same time, the rune quietly collapsed, and the thunder suddenly disappeared. Seeing this, Lockhart immediately controlled the feather pen and wrote in the notebook, results of the rune number 23 experiment. Drawing complexity, medium, effect, calling thunder and lightning, with a small amount of lethality. Guessed meaning, thunder, attracting lightning note. It can be carried by material, or sketched out of thin air, and can be used for spell research. After recording the relevant information of rune number 23, Lockhart's eyes were filled with a glimmer of inquiry. Since moving to the new house yesterday, in addition to reading books and practicing spells every day, he has been constantly studying the runes he recorded before. In 2 days, a large amount of magic materials have been consumed, and 23 runes have been explored, accounting for nearly 1/5 of the total. Most of these 23 runes require material carriers, such as rune number 9, which has a simple effect, that is, solidity. Sketching out of thin air cannot reveal the effect. but he tried to carve on a piece of paulownia wood and instantly found that this piece of copper wood was as hard as steel. There are also some runes that can be sketched out of thin air and produce certain effects. Although the performance is very weak, it is enough to show that this type of rune can definitely be used in the research and development of spells. Among the 23 runes that have been explored, 5 runes are very mysterious. Whether it is outlined or engraved on a material carrier, no effect has been found. I'm afraid that this needs to be found out by a professional Asgardian wizard, or wait until I return to the Harry Potter world to find a special ancient rune master to discuss and study together. With Lockhart's current understanding of runes, he believes that runes are a shortcut to insight into the essence of magic. Whether you are a professional alchemist or not, mastering a large number of runes will be of great help in studying magic and improving your magic level. After temporarily naming the 23rd rune Thunder, Lockhart looked at the somewhat messy living room, gently waving the wand, mobilizing the magic power out of thin air along a wonderful trajectory, outlined a simple light blue rune. Rune number 19, Clean. The rune appeared quietly, emitting a faint blue light that enveloped the entire hall. Soon, the stains in the hall suddenly disappeared, as if brand new. However, the broken glass, shredded paper, etc. were still exposed on the ground, without any movement, but much cleaner than before. Seeing this, Lockhart sighed lightly, waved his wand lightly, and said to the hall at a very fast speed, "Restore it to its original state." As soon as the voice fell, a strange wave emanated from the top of the wand, covering the entire hall. Then, the broken glass, scattered wood blocks, exploded metal, etc. in the hall automatically floated up. As if time was reversed, all the broken objects reversed along the original broken trajectory and returned to their original state. Neat glass, slender wood strips, bronze metal, only the magic materials were just piled together and did not return to their original state. In an instant, the entire hall returned to the appearance when Lockhart just moved in. Neat and clean. Although he did not involve much in Asgard's magic, but with his research on runes and the Asgard mythology he knew. He guessed that Asgard's magic might not be as flexible as the magic in Harry Potter's world. Asgard's magic is likely to focus on combat. The magic in the Harry Potter world is more comprehensive and flexible. Because emotions and will are the core characteristics of magic in the Harry Potter world, it emphasizes control more. More importantly, there is a pure wizard world in the Harry Potter world. It has only focused on the field of magic for thousands of years. This extends to many fields such as life, combat, treatment, alchemy, etc. The Asgard system is very mixed, with warriors, magicians, and even technology, gods, etc. It is too complicated, but not pure, and will only focus on one aspect. But this is just a guess. After all, he has not really come into contact with the magicians of Asgard. At night. At this moment, Lockhart is reviewing the new spells and new knowledge he has recently come into contact with on the desk in the living room. Staring at the white paper, he reveals calm thinking. Soon, as if he thought of something, he waved his hand gently. A large amount of handwriting appeared as the feather pen kept sliding. After a while, the handwriting had covered a whole piece of white paper, and then it automatically turned the page and wrote on the next page of white paper. It took 7 pages to finish. Finally, Lockhart wrote down his own conclusion. We should be good at using runes. They are our eyes looking up at the truth, allowing us to find the ray of light of truth in the confusion of darkness. After writing, he looked at it again, pondered for a while, made a few minor changes, and then turned to the next page. It was another blank white paper. Lockhart wrote at the top, on the differences and similarities between ancient runes and runes. After writing the title, this time, Lockhart thought for a longer time, as if he was a little hesitant about which angle to explain it from. Suddenly, a hurried footsteps gradually sounded. Then, bang, 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 a more urgent knock on the door sounded. Lockhart frowned slightly while thinking. He didn't like to be disturbed when he was thinking. But Lockhart tapped the table with his middle finger, and a transparent ripple spread outward, and then the picture outside appeared in his mind. This is a simple exploration spell he created by combining runes. In the absence of interference from extraordinary factors, it can easily explore the surrounding environment. Seeing the scene in his mind, Lockhart's eyes flashed with surprise. The people who came were actually Eric, Jane, and Daisy. It's so late, what could have happened? His face was still a little anxious. Thoughts flashed in his brain, and his eyes revealed a look of sudden realization. That's right, at this late hour, there was nothing to worry about except that matter. So he waved his wand lightly, controlled the door to open, and put away the notebook on the desk at the same time. Facing the three people who came in, he calmly asked, Eric, what are you three so anxious about? Before Eric Selvig could speak, Jane said anxiously, Professor Lockhart, it's not good. Thor said he wanted to get his Mjolnir back, but he was caught. You are a magician, there must be a way to save him, right? Hearing Jane's somewhat anxious tone, Lockhart said softly, okay, Jane, I know what happened. Let's go first, and you can tell me in detail while we walk. What happened specifically? As he said that, Lockhart waved his wand lightly, and the clothes hanging on the hanger floated towards Lockhart. He stretched out his hands slightly, and put them on. Then, he walked out of the door. Jane next to him calmed down. As he walked, he forced himself to explain the whole story in a calm tone. Please collect. Please recommend. Please invest. Please read again. Chapter 9. Do you think we, the people of S.H.I.E.L.D., are idiots? On the streets of the town, a black van was speeding towards the east. Inside the van, Jane was explaining the whole process to Lockhart, who was sitting in front, at a very fast speed. Lockhart listened and nodded slightly, as if thinking. After Jane finished speaking, Lockhart looked at everyone calmly, and said in a deep voice, okay, I know the whole thing now. The situation now is, Thor was captured, and you want to save him, right? Hearing what Lockhart said, Jane nodded heavily. Eric next to him also said, yes, Professor Lockhart. After all, Thor has suddenly helped us a lot these days. After hearing Eric's reply, Lockhart's eyes were a little strange. Are you sure? Is he helping you or Jane? Thinking about it, without thinking too much, Lockhart said in a deep voice, since you want to save Thor, tell me your rescue plan. And what do you need me to do? If you need my help, I will do my best. Hearing this, Eric smiled awkwardly and looked hesitant. After seeing this, Lockhart asked in a somewhat strange tone, don't tell me that you didn't even make a rescue plan. Are you sure you are going to save people, not yourself? Hearing this, Eric hurriedly said, no, Professor Lockhart. We made a fake ID for Thor to see if we can save him. But, at this point, Eric's expression became more hesitant, and he said hesitantly, we are worried that there will be accidents in the middle, so we invited you here. Hearing this, Lockhart pondered for a moment. Well, I overestimated them. It was still the routine of the original plot. He thought that, after he influenced the plot, plus the intrusion of a wizard like himself, what new ideas would there be? This plan, hey, it's simply a bamboo sieve to catch water, full of loopholes. If Coulson hadn't planned to use Thor as bait, the three of you would have laughed immediately. However, when he thought that the final result was not bad, Lockhart was not going to disrupt the plan. Otherwise, if it were him, he would have used an illusion charm directly to enter, and then a powerful confusion charm, and finally gave them a set of oblivion charms. In this way, even if he walked out with Thor directly, no one would notice. However, thinking of the plan behind, Lockhart smiled and said, okay, I know what you are worried about. Don't worry, even if you take out a blank piece of paper, I can make them believe it. After hearing Lockhart's answer, Jane was immediately overjoyed, and hurriedly thanked him. Thank you, Professor Lockhart. Eric and Daisy next to him also smiled. As if he had the final guarantee, Eric stepped on the accelerator, increased the speed of the car, and ran towards the S.H.I.E.L.D. base in Mjolnir. S.H.I.E.L.D. simple base. The entire base was built with Mjolnir as a center, and a large number of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents were distributed around it, patrolling cautiously. They had just been severely scolded by their superiors, and they were blocked by a group of people, but they were beaten through the base with bare hands. It can be said to be a fighter in shame. At this moment, Coulson looked at Thor, who was silent and depressed, and his originally gentle face showed a trace of vigilance from time to time. This man, in just a few minutes, used no weapons, and beat the agents they had trained for many years with just a pair of fists. Just limited observation can show that the other party has extremely rich combat experience. It can be determined that the number of battles he has participated in is definitely far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. It is very likely that he is a professional mercenary. But no matter how he asked, the other party always remained silent. And for some reason, Coulson could clearly sense that the other party exuded a lost and desperate atmosphere. It was like a bird that kept crying and didn't know when it would return home. Damn it. It's just being arrested, not killing your whole family. Even if your whole family was killed, this shouldn't be the reaction. He has seen many prisoners who have been arrested, but he has never seen such a weird prisoner. At this moment, suddenly, a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent walked towards him and whispered in his ear, "Sir, someone wants to take away the prisoner who invaded our base. They said this is their companion, who said he got drunk and accidentally broke into the camp." Hearing this, Coulson showed a funny expression on his face. This excuse, isn't it too perfunctory? Are they treating the people of S.H.I.E.L.D. as idiots? Your companion just drank a little wine and was able to break through the camp of hundreds of people from our S.H.I.E.L.D. What kind of wine is it? It's so powerful that our S.H.I.E.L.D. also wants to order a box. But this is also an opportunity. Coulson looked at Thor, who lowered his head and said nothing, and a trace of thought flashed in his eyes. Then, he walked out with the agents beside him, leaving Thor alone in the interrogation room. "Are you sure his name is Donald Blake?" Coulson walked to the entrance of the camp, glanced at the two men in front of him, paused for a moment on Lockhart, and then asked the slightly older middle-aged man in the lead, Eric Selvig. "Of course, you can also call him Dr. Donald Blake. Your partner is really dangerous, Dr. Selwick, you know. He walked through our entire camp alone. Do you have any explanation? Oh, my god, you know, after you took away all our research materials, he was anxious. That was his life's work, and it's gone just like that." Facing Coulson's obviously questioning tone, Eric said with some complaints, "Later, you know, every man will explode when encountering such a thing." He couldn't hold back the anger in his heart, so he kept drinking, and we couldn't persuade him. He ran over when we weren't paying attention. Hearing Eric's complaining tone, Coulson had a blank expression on his face, and his tone revealed a hint of seriousness when he asked, "This is not enough to prove that he could break into our camp. Stimulants, look at his strong body. After drinking stimulants, he broke in with brute force." After hearing Eric's explanation, Coulson's expression remained unchanged, but Lockhart still found that there was a speechless meaning in his eyes. Immediately, Coulson did not ask any more questions, but waved to the agent next to him, indicating that he should check his identity. At this moment, seeing the agent in action, Lockhart gently waved the wand hidden in his sleeve, confuse the audience. A powerful confusion spell was cast. Suddenly, in the eyes of the agent, the blood red words information falsification on the screen were transformed into green words information correct. The agent showed a trace of surprise in his eyes and hurriedly called out to Coulson next to him. Coulson turned his head to look at the green words on the screen indicating that the information was correct, and a trace of seriousness flashed in his eyes. It seems that the other party's information work is quite good, and even the Federal Citizen Information Database can be successfully invaded. Thinking of this, Coulson immediately turned his head and looked at the handsome blonde man opposite, Gilderoy Lockhart. This name appeared in his mind, and Coulson pondered. It seems that his previous feeling may be correct. The other party may have problems. Even the identity information is also forged. After not thinking for long, Coulson followed the original plan and waved his hand, signaling Eric to go in and take Thor away. Eric was surprised to hear Coulson agree to their request and followed the leading agent to quickly enter the camp. Lockhart followed closely. Suddenly, Coulson looked at the last figure of Lockhart and asked, "Sir, I remember you. Your name is Gilderoy Lockhart, right?" Hearing the voice behind him, Lockhart turned around, nodded, and said calmly, "Yes, my name is Gilderoy Lockhart. You can also call me Professor Lockhart." After that, he followed Eric to the interrogation room where Thor was. During the walk, Eric had some doubts about what Coulson had just said. Lockhart briefly explained it, and didn't say much. Soon, Eric and Lockhart took Thor out of the camp smoothly, and returned to their own van. In the black van, there were Jane and Daisy, who had been waiting for a long time. Please collect. Please recommend. Exclamation mark. Please invest. Exclamation mark. Please read on. Chapter 10, Thor's skyrocketing popularity. Thor, what's wrong with you? I feel like you're in a very low mood. Did something happen to you? It's okay. Tell me and we'll face it together. Yes, we are a team. We believe that, no matter how difficult the problem is, we can solve it together. In the black van, Jane looked at Thor, who was in a low mood, silent, and pale, and comforted him quickly. Daisy next to him also echoed. Lockhart, who was in front, also turned his head slightly, and looked at the silent Thor. He naturally knew the reason. Wasn't it because Loki deceived him? But it was not convenient for him to get involved in these. His goal was simple, to increase recognition, and conduct a reputation lottery. Facing Jane and Daisy's words of comfort, Thor's face regained some color, and he said in a low voice, "Nothing, maybe I'm going to stay on Earth forever." Jane breathed a sigh of relief after hearing this. She thought something big had happened. In the end, it was just like this. It seems to be a good thing. But seeing Thor's depression, she quickly comforted him. "Don't worry, I will always be with you." Then, Jane began to comfort Thor and provide psychological counseling. Soon, Thor slowly recovered. It seems that the power of love is sometimes not worse than magic. Lockhart joked to himself. Well, the power of love, I heard that Dumbledore has been studying it. Maybe it's true. Eric, who was driving, heard what Thor had just said, and heard Jane's words of comforting Thor. He was silent for a while, drove more attentively, and didn't say another word. Back to the house, rented by Eric and the other two. After turning on the lights, Lockhart waved his wand lightly, and soon, 5 glasses were placed on the table opposite the sofa. At the same time, water and orange juice were also poured into them. After seeing this, the 4 people sat on the sofa very naturally. Daisy said to Lockhart with some envy, "Professor Lockhart, your magic is really useful. I really want to learn it. If I just wave my hand, all the meals will be ready. How wonderful it would be." Hearing Daisy's envious tone, Lockhart waved his hands and said helplessly, "Let muggles learn magic. This has been a difficult problem in our wizarding world since ancient times. Many powerful wizards are studying it, and even many evil experiments have appeared, but to no avail. I have no way." Then Lockhart began to change the subject and asked Thor, "Thor, I just heard you say that you wanted to stay on Earth. Do you have any plans? If so, I can also provide some useful suggestions." Hearing Lockhart's question, Thor's eyes flashed with confusion. He had just heard the news like a bolt from the blue, and had no other ideas at all. Seeing Thor silent, Lockhart knew that Thor might not have made a plan yet, so he continued to change the subject and said, "Let's not talk about this matter for now. Maybe you need time to think about it. By the way, can you tell me about the magic of Asgard? You know, as wizards, we have always been very interested in magic, even if it's just some introduction." Hearing Lockhart's question, Jane, Daisy and Eric beside him also looked at Thor with great interest. Before, they had only heard Lockhart talk about the magic of the wizarding world, and had never heard Thor talk about the magic of Asgard. As if sensing the expectations in everyone's eyes, Thor thought for a while and slowly introduced, "I don't study magic deeply. My brother Loki specializes in magic. At the same time, my mother Queen Frigga also practices magic. However, when I was a child, our magic teacher told us that the magic of Asgard is based on runes." So, Lockhart listened attentively to everything Thor said about the magic of Asgard. He even secretly began to use magic to deepen his memory of this part. It would be convenient to retrieve the memory later and listen to it again. After Thor finished introducing the magic of Asgard, Lockhart also began to share some of his own adventures. Jane, Daisy, and Eric also slowly shared some interesting or mysterious things they had encountered before. The originally dull atmosphere soon became lively. As Lockhart became interested, he cast magic and made a delicious midnight snack for everyone. The atmosphere became more lively. After a long time, it was already late at night. Seeing the bright moon outside and a hint of sleepiness in the eyes of Eric and others, Lockhart stood up and said with a smile, "Okay, let's stop here for today. Everyone have a good rest. We'll continue chatting tomorrow, if we have a chance. As he said that, he winked at Thor and said jokingly, I still have a lot of questions about Asgard magic, and I need you to answer them for me, Thor. Hearing this, Thor patted his chest and said proudly, okay, Lockhart, you are my friend. Just ask me any questions. As long as I understand it, I will be generous. Hearing this, Lockhart also smiled and stood up. Then he reached out and took out a space bag hanging around his waist, handed it to Thor, and explained, this is a bag made with a space extension spell, which is commonly known as a space bag. There is a lot of space in it. I set it up specially so that ordinary muggles can use it. I heard you say before that you wanted to stay on Earth forever. I think life costs money. I don't have much Earth currency, but I have a lot of gold. There is some gold in this bag. You can use it first. As he spoke, seeing Thor's expression of wanting to refuse, Lockhart waved his hand quickly and continued, Thor, don't refuse yet. You know, for people like us, gold is not actually a very valuable thing. Besides, the magic knowledge you shared with me before is very valuable to me. This can be regarded as some of my rewards. If you feel bad, don't refuse when I ask you some questions about Asgard magic later. As he spoke, Lockhart blinked jokingly, as if hinting at something. Hearing what Lockhart said, Thor clenched the space bag in his hand tightly, nodded, and said with some gratitude, okay, Lockhart, I will help if I can. Thor knew that, although Lockhart said it was a reward, he was actually helping him. The magic knowledge he talked about was just a simple introduction, because he didn't study magic much. To be honest, it was not worth much. And Lockhart also gave him gold that was commonly used on Earth, just for the sake of their friendship. During the few days he lived on Earth, he also knew the value of gold and the importance of rice and dollars. At this moment, he really regarded Lockhart as his friend. Lockhart waved his hand, indicating that everyone didn't need to see him off, and strode out the door. When he turned his back to everyone and walked out of the door, he seemed to hear the system ding, with a smile on his face. After returning to his rented house, Lockhart sat at his desk, called the system lightly, and focused his eyes on the character recognition page. Character recognition, Thor Odinson, 7000ths. I have received a message from the website today. I'm going through the process and changing the status. You can invest in advance to earn some Kidian coins. Please collect and recommend. Chapter 11 Lockhart's efforts to achieve a great achievement. Thor Odinson, 7000ths. Looking at the light blue text on the system, Lockhart's mouth curled up slightly. He was not very anxious to build a good relationship with Thor before. It was because he knew that Thor would have a period of low mood in the future. He only needed to exert a little effort at this stage. He could quickly improve Thor's recognition and make him regard him as a true friend. Therefore, some of his previous actions were at most to ease some relationships, and he did not particularly please Thor. Even the two did not communicate much, just occasionally chatting, because he had long focused on Thor's lowest and most helpless time. As long as he helped him at this time, even if the help was not much, it would be enough to magnify his favorability hundreds or thousands of times. So, when he heard Thor say that he wanted to stay on Earth forever, Lockhart knew that the time had come. Sure enough, he simply exerted a little effort, and his recognition quickly soared. This is the art of making friends. Many times, licking dogs, really licking to the end, nothing. The best way to quickly establish a good relationship with a person is to start from his most vulnerable point, break his defense, let him recognize you from the bottom of his heart, and even appreciate you. Only in this way can you become true friends, and it is difficult to change in a short period of time. For example, when Thor heard the news of his father's death, when he knew that he would stay on Earth forever, it was the best time. Similarly, when Tony Stark knew that he would die soon, it was also the best time. The so-called drop of water should be repaid with a spring. The character of the other party is one aspect, but the timing of showing favor is the most important. Only when the other party needs it most, even a small help will be kept in mind, and there will be a spring of return later. Otherwise, no matter how good the other party's character is, no matter how much you show favor, the other party will only give you an equal return, at most a little higher. Whether it is a muggle, a wizard, or a god, as long as you make the right move at the right time, you can magnify the results hundreds or thousands of times. This is commonly known as 4 ounces to move 1,000 pounds. This is what smart people do. As a wizard, it is crucial to use your brain, don't be greedy, and know how to be calm and restrained. Only by being calm and restrained can you seize the opportunity and succeed in one fell swoop. Lockhart thought silently, and he did the same. After carefully reviewing the plan this time, he found that there were basically no major mistakes, so he nodded with satisfaction. Then, he set his sights on Thor's recognition. Before today, Thor's recognition hovered around 20. The recognition of Jane, Daisy, and Eric was around 35. Among them, Daisy's recognition was the highest, sometimes even reaching 40. Well, it may be that Lockhart's handsome face is very attractive to Daisy. But despite this, the reputation lottery cannot be carried out. According to Lockhart's previous research, the recognition of the system is actually different from the favorability. When the favorability is high, it will naturally be highly recognized. But when the favorability is extremely low, or even negative, it will sometimes be highly recognized. Just like Voldemort hated Dumbledore, but he highly recognized Dumbledore's strength and even wisdom. After all, if Voldemort despised Dumbledore's strength and wisdom, it would be a great insult to himself. Such a Voldemort is not worthy of being called the Dark Lord. In terms of recognition, the full value is 100. There are cases where it is lower than a negative number, but basically, when the recognition is negative, it means that the relationship between the two is extremely bad, or the other party looks down on and despises it. Simply put, it means that the other party is not regarded as a human being, but as a slave, a pest, and garbage. Well, in the case of wizards, the recognition of pureblood families for Muggle wizards is mostly negative. Mudblood, this slanderous name, is the best proof. When the recognition is a positive number, even if it is higher than 0, it means that the other party has a basic recognition. At least treat you as a human being, at most just a stranger. The recognition level of 0-30 means only the most basic recognition, and when it reaches 30 at most, there will be a hint of curiosity. When Lockhart first traveled to the Marvel world, Jane and Daisy's recognition of Lockhart reached 30, largely due to their curiosity about Lockhart's identity as a wizard. Eric and Thor's recognition was significantly lower than 30. Eric was older and had seen more things, so he was still quite wary of Lockhart, who had just appeared. This was not surprising to Lockhart. Thor's recognition was negative at first. After all, a confinement spell plus a silent spell directly aroused Thor's anger. Although it eased later, it was basically not high, reaching a level of 20 at most, because Thor did not have much feeling about Lockhart's identity and strength as a wizard. On the one hand, it was because Lockhart did not deliberately show his strength, nor did he deliberately make friends with Thor. On the other hand, Thor had a broad vision. He was the Prince of Asgard and the future Lord of the Nine Realms, and he had experienced countless battles. He had seen many magicians, not just Lockhart. Therefore, the recognition was average. When the recognition was lower than 30, the reputation lottery could not be carried out. Even in the stage of 30 to 50, you still can't draw. So, later, after Jane, Daisy, and Eric's recognition reached about 40, they regarded Lockhart as their friend. Lockhart still did not consume his reputation to draw with them. Only when the recognition reaches 50 or above, can the standard of reputation lottery be met. Once the recognition reaches 50, it means that the other party has recognized Lockhart. Once it reaches this level, any suggestion of Lockhart will be seriously considered by the other party, and will not be rejected without thinking. When the recognition reaches 60, 70 or even 80, any behavior of Lockhart, even if the behavior is too absurd, the other party will not ignore or ridicule it directly, but will think deeply, and sometimes even doubt whether their IQ is insufficient. Simply put, it means that they trust Lockhart and regard Lockhart as a friend from the bottom of their hearts, just like Thor at this moment. Even if it is an enemy, when it reaches this level of recognition, they will be extremely cautious about any behavior of Lockhart, and dare not make decisions or judgments easily. Once it reaches a level above 80, it means that the recognition is extremely high. Lockhart had never seen such a level. However, he guessed that, if the standard was reached, even if the other party had to sacrifice their lives, they would be willing. For example, the recognition of a fanatic to God must be above 80. If it was an enemy, Lockhart thought of the most classic case. Dumbledore and Grindelwald. The two loved and killed each other, and both sides knew each other very well, and could guess each other's thoughts, ideas, and all actions. When this level of recognition was reached, even if the two sides were hostile, they would not have the heart to kill. For example, after Dumbledore defeated Grindelwald, he did not execute him directly, but instead just locked him up in Ermengarde. This is a typical case. As for the rules of the reputation lottery, as long as the recognition reaches 50, you can draw the lottery. The higher the recognition, the easier it is to obtain the other party's precious abilities, knowledge, and even talents. Therefore, Lockhart quickly made Thor's recognition soar from 20 to 70 through a simple but clever plan. Even if this was just a momentary emotional excitement. Later, it will be slowed down due to time. But it will still meet the lottery standard and maintain a recognition rate of more than 50 for a long time. So, this time, Thor's knowledge, ability and even talent may not escape Lockhart's hands. When he thought of this, Lockhart's mouth curled up slightly. This book has been signed. Please read it, recommend it, and invest in it. Chapter 12 Alien Prince Wizard Professor. Lockhart, you are much better than the magicians I have seen. To be honest, the food made with magic is really delicious. The chefs in Asgard should really learn from you. Thor sat on a stool in the open space outside, looking at the barbecue table opposite, eating barbecue with big mouthfuls, and exclaimed loudly. On the barbecue table opposite him, a large number of barbecued meat, fruits and vegetables were strung into strings, floating in the air, and automatically rotating slowly on the barbecue table. From time to time, some pepper, chili powder, cumin and other seasonings were sprinkled on them. Lockhart and Jane and others sat next to Thor, holding various kinds of barbecued meat or vegetables in their hands. Hearing Thor's praise, Lockhart took a bite of the beef on the bamboo stick, chewed it, swallowed it, and said with a smile, "Haha, thank you for the compliment. When I was adventuring before, I practiced barbecue well, and even studied a barbecue spell to quickly make a delicate barbecue. Well, speaking of this, Lockhart must give a thumbs up to the original body. Not to mention other spells, the original body is a genius in life spells. In Lockhart's memory, in addition to studying a large number of spells specifically for meeting fans and improving his appearance, the original body has in-depth research in all aspects of life, especially in food. He even studied a spell specifically for making food. What a genius with an itch. It's a waste of talent not to enter Hufflepuff. It's a pity, alas, the original body valued fame and fortune too much and went astray. Thinking about it, Lockhart said to Eric next to him, "Eric, try this enoki mushroom, my favorite vegetable. It tastes quite good." As he said, a string of enoki mushrooms on the barbecue table floated in front of Eric. After hearing this, Eric smiled, picked it up, tasted it, and seemed to think it tasted good, and ate several bites in a row. After finishing the whole string of enoki mushrooms, he also praised, "Delicious, really delicious. I have eaten too many enoki mushrooms before, but this is the first time I have eaten such delicious enoki mushrooms." After hearing Eric's praise, Lockhart waved his hands repeatedly. Jane and Daisy beside him also ran to the barbecue table and picked up a few strings. After tasting, they also shouted delicious. Seeing everyone's happy expressions, Lockhart said slowly, "The reason why food is delicious, in addition to the ingredients themselves, is that magic has regular stimulation. This can greatly enhance the freshness of food, and it will taste more delicious. Everyone can try more. I usually like to eat some barbecue alone to relieve the hard work of daily research." Well, in his previous life, he did like to eat barbecue after research, to relieve his tired mood. It must be said that food is a weapon to relieve psychological pressure. The only disadvantage is that after eating, the body is easy to gain weight. But in the Harry Potter world, this is much easier to deal with. The effect of the potion is very magical, and the various magical spells are not exaggerated. In the memory of the original body, Lockhart even studied a new spell to maintain his figure. TSK, TSK, TSK. Once again give a thumbs up to the genius Lockhart who has gone astray. Afterwards, Lockhart used magic to make ice drinks for everyone. After tasting, everyone praised it again. Sure enough, food is a common feature of all humans, including gods. Lockhart quietly glanced at the system character recognition interface, and a faint smile floated on his face. Thor Odinson, 6500ths. He invited everyone to eat barbecue this time. On the one hand, it was to consolidate his recognition with Thor. On the other hand, it was for the lottery. However, seeing the result of this reputation lottery, Lockhart shook his head slightly. Advanced Combat Experience *3 right square bracket, Intermediate Hammer Mastery *2 right square bracket, Primary Thunder Affinity *2 right square bracket. Lockhart drew 20 prizes in a row for Thor, consuming a total of 20,000 reputation points, basically consuming about 1/5 of the total. But the result was very average. Most of the results of the lottery were about combat experience, skill types, and they were all close combat, which was of little help to him. The only valuable one was the primary thunder affinity, but he quietly experimented and found that the so-called primary thunder affinity only made it easier to cast thunder spells, and there was no change in other things, and the power did not increase at all. Lockhart guessed that it might be because Thor was currently in a sealed state. Many high-value experiences, abilities, and talents were isolated, so he naturally couldn't draw them. He could only wait until Thor officially recovered his strength before making other plans. But it's coming soon. Soon, the 4 people from Asgard are about to arrive. Thor is about to return. Shield base. Coulson was sitting in the command room, silently looking at the display in front of him. The display showed Lockhart and Thor eating barbecue. Coulson focused his eyes heavily on the barbecue, fruits, and vegetables floating in the air, and frowned slightly. He said to Barton next to him, "Barton, what do you think about this?" Barton shook his head, touched the bow and arrow on his back, and said indifferently, "Don't ask me. My personal suggestion is to report to Director Fury, and then wait for orders. I'm an operational staff, only responsible for combat matters." Hearing the indifference in Barton's tone, Coulson rubbed his eyebrows and muttered to himself, "Prince of Asgard, Wizard Professor. What's wrong with this world? Why are there so many messes in recent years? Iron Man, the Hulk, and now aliens and wizards." Alas, Coulson sighed deeply. It is definitely impossible to arrest him, and he can only report to Director Fury. This Prince of Asgard, running to Earth, no matter what the reason is, it involves the diplomacy of the 2 civilizations. Especially this also involves the legendary gods, which is very tricky. As for the wizard Professor Lockhart, although it is not as tricky as the prince of the alien civilization, it is also very troublesome. When hearing the title of professor, even a fool knows that there is a school behind it. And what does school mean? Having a school means having students, families, and a large population. A large population means having classes and rulers. If there are rulers, then there will definitely be concepts similar to the army, police, and country. See the big from the small. This Lockhart may have a complete civilization system behind him. In particular, the SHIELD agents obtained the content of their conversations through eavesdropping, based on subtle clues. Coulson can be 100% sure that there is a mature wizard civilization system behind Lockhart. The most troublesome thing is that an alien prince and a wizard professor are mixed together. It's really a matter of one hair moving the whole body. If you really want to take action, no matter which one you move, the other will not be left behind. When he thought of this, Coulson suddenly felt that his hair would not be saved. Alas. Oh my god. This book has been signed. Please read it, recommend it, and invest. Chapter 13 Thor the Destroyer arrives. 3 days later, in the house that Eric rented. Thor, do you also understand this rune? In the living room on the first floor of the house, Lockhart sat on the table, holding a magic wand, and drew a very complex rune in the air, and asked with a somewhat excited tone. Thor, who was opposite, saw the rune floating in the air, shining with blue light, and composed of a large number of complex lines. After a little thought, he said directly, Lockhart, you can understand the meaning of this rune as judgment. The main function is to judge according to the will, and the role it plays is similar to a switch. At this point, Thor's expression was a little low, but he still said, for example, Mime Mjolnir, the judgment rune engraved in it, if it meets its standards, can lift Mjolnir. If not, then it is extremely heavy. Hearing Thor's answer, Lockhart quickly controlled the feather pen to record what Thor said. While recording, he sighed. There is indeed prejudice in his heart, or it can be said that he looks down on others. Lockhart thought rather self-deprecatingly. In his previous life, his understanding of Marvel's plot was limited to the plot of the movie. He had not explored it in depth. After all, he was busy doing research, and watching movies was just to relieve stress. Who would have thought that he would be able to travel to the Marvel world one day? So, Thor, who was thought to be a reckless and unthinking student in the plot, was unexpectedly a top student. He was also a top student among top students. He understood dozens of extremely complex runes clearly and explained them to him thoroughly. He had to admire the training level of the Asgard royal family. This also made him calm down completely and gradually let him treat the plot in his brain with a more objective attitude. After all, the plot of the previous life was just a movie of more than 2 hours. Although there would be a lot of key information, the information that could be revealed was limited. The current world is a real world. A lot of information cannot be completely relied on the general plot memory in the mind. It is necessary to analyze and deduce it by yourself. This time, it was really right to ask Thor to explain the runes. Since the relationship with Thor warmed up, Lockhart invited Thor, Eric and others to dinner in the name of asking for advice on magic. On the one hand, he really wanted to ask Thor about Asgard's magic. Even though Thor was a professional warrior and didn't know much about magic, his previous magic training, some wizards' ways of thinking, and some common sense were very valuable to Lockhart. After all, the living environment is different, and there are also great differences in cognition. It is very likely that the other party's common sense is a considerable wealth for himself. And the reality gave him a lot of surprises, and he got a lot of knowledge about runes from Thor. Even some Asgard wizard training knowledge was obtained. On the other hand, according to the original plot, recently, it is very likely that the Asgard foursome will come to find Thor, which is the opportunity for Thor to regain his strength. After regaining his strength, he will return to Asgard. This is his last chance to contact the complete version of Thor, and he can't let it go easily. He is also going to add some trump cards for himself through the reputation lottery. Well, as for how the runes were obtained, I told Thor frankly that it was obtained from Thor's hammer. However, the time was pushed back a little bit, and it was changed to after Thor was saved. Out of curiosity, he entered the shield camp through magic to study Thor's hammer Mjolnir. Thor didn't care. After all, he couldn't move Mjolnir at all now. However, Lockhart saw Thor's low mood and thought about the previous problem, which might trigger his sad point, losing Mjolnir's recognition. So he thought for a moment, stood up, and said loudly, "Okay, let's stop here for today. Let's start today's food moment. Tell me what you want to eat. I'll make it." Hearing what Law has said, Thor, Jane, and Daisy's eyes lit up instantly, and they quickly said, "I want to eat magic grilled fish. I want to eat that dragon meat fried ball. I want butterbeer. I want." Hearing the chirping voice in his ear, Lockhart quickly reached out to suppress it. Seeing that everyone lowered their tone, he smiled and said, okay, everyone will definitely make it. Don't be so anxious. There are 5 of us. What do you want to eat? Everyone can order whatever you want. I'll make it together later." At this moment, suddenly, on the transparent glass door not far away, 4 figures wearing armor of various colors appeared, and at the same time, there was a bang 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 sound. "Hey, Thor, I found you." Thor turned his head and saw it, and immediately shouted in surprise, "Sif, why are you here?" After shouting, he quickly ran over to open the door, and gave a big hug to Hagen, the leader. Soon, after Thor let go, he quickly introduced his 4 friends to Lockhart, Jane and others behind him. "These are my best friends in Asgard. Volstagg, Fandral, Hagen, the 3 warriors of Asgard. Also, this is Sif, also my comrade in arms, the goddess of land and harvest." Thor pointed to Sif, who was standing aside in light golden armor, and introduced her. After the introduction, he pointed to Lockhart and others, and said to Sif and the other 4 people, "Hey, these are my good friends I met on Earth. This is Lockhart, this is Jane, Daisy, and Eric." He pointed to Lockhart and the other 4 people respectively. After hearing Thor's introduction, Lockhart smiled and said softly, "It's nice to meet friends from Asgard. It just so happens that we are going to have a big meal. Do you want to join us?" After hearing this, Thor quickly said to the Asgard quartet, "Vorstater, Lockhart is a wizard. He can cook a lot of delicious food. You must try it. The taste is really good, much better than the chefs in Asgard." Hearing this, Volstater's eyes lit up, and he immediately said, okay. I love eating delicious food the most." Seeing everyone's expectant eyes, Lockhart smiled and said, "Okay, I'll make a big meal for everyone today, to welcome friends from Asgard." As he said that, he took out the space bag from his waist, and made it float in the air. Then he waved his wand lightly, and a large amount of ingredients came out of the space bag. Green peppers, onions, corn, cheese, sausages, beef and other ingredients appeared in front of everyone. They also floated in the air. For a moment, the large amount of ingredients formed a strong contrast with the small and exquisite space bag. Sif and the others opened their mouths slightly, somewhat stunned. Although the wizards of Asgard also have artifacts such as space rings, they are relatively rare, and they rarely see them. This time, they were naturally surprised, and even shocked to suddenly see the large capacity space equipment in the scene with strong contrast in front of them. Seeing the shocked expressions of the people in Asgard, Lockhart's mouth curled up slightly. Starting from the details, these Asgardians will naturally feel their own strength. Thus, they will get the respect they deserve. Relying on pure friendship is too illusory, and it is difficult to get other people to look at it differently. Suddenly, Lockhart frowned, waved his wand lightly, and a large amount of food quickly re-entered the space bag. After collecting them, Lockhart said helplessly to Thor and others, "It seems that we can't have this feast for the time being." Then, he said to Sif, Vostater and others in a serious tone, "Just now I sensed a strong energy fluctuation, which is consistent with your arrival, and it exudes a dangerous aura. I'm afraid it has no good intentions." Hearing this, Thor hurriedly asked, "By the way, I forgot to ask just now, why did you come to Earth?" Faced with Thor's doubts, Vostater hurriedly replied, "Thor, of course it is to take you back. Now, Loki takes advantage of the God King's slumber to occupy the throne, causing chaos in the entire Asgard. We want to take you back to the palace, and take back the throne that you deserve." Hearing this, Thor's pupils shrank, and he hurriedly asked, "Are you sure that your father is sleeping?" Hearing the doubts in Thor's tone, Sif and others nodded heavily, and replied as a matter of course, "Yes, Thor. Otherwise, Loki wouldn't be so arrogant, causing chaos in Asgard and constantly seizing power." Hearing this, Thor was very depressed, as if he had suffered a major blow. After seeing this, Lockhart sighed slightly. During this period of time, Thor has never confessed the reason why he wants to stay on Earth forever. They naturally won't ask. After all, this is Thor's wand. Now, Thor naturally understands what Loki said before were all lies. It was to keep him on Earth. At the same time, Daisy walked out of the door and shouted, "Everyone come and see. There is a huge armored giant outside." Lockhart also walked out and looked from a distance. It was the destroyer armor. In the new book period, follow-up reading data is extremely important. Readers who like this book are requested to pin it to the top for easy viewing of the latest chapters. Chapter 14 Will is the soul. Knowledge is the bones. Magic is the flesh. Boom. Hearing the roar of the destroyer stomping on the ground and attacking wantonly in the distance, Thor, Fandral and others hurried out, followed by Lockhart and Jane. Looking at the destroyer getting closer and closer, making a huge roar with every step. Thor's face became more and more ugly. Looking at the approaching enemy, Thor thought for a while, and said to Vostater and others beside him, "Although I have lost my strength now, and cannot fight alongside you, but you don't have to worry about me. If I stay, I can help others be safer." Jane beside him heard it and quickly said, "Thor, you stay, then I will stay too, to help you evacuate the crowd." Eric and Daisy beside him also nodded. Lockhart saw Thor at this moment and nodded slightly. Now Thor is different from the recklessness before. He knows how to consider others and take responsibility. Thinking about it, he watched everyone express their own ideas for helping, and smiled at Thor and others and said, "We wizards are very experienced in evacuating Muggle people." As he spoke, he waved the wand in his hand, injected magic power, and chanted the spell in a hurried tone. Muggle shield. Muggle shield. Muggle shield. As Lockhart continued to cast the Muggle expelling spell, the tip of the wand released a large amount of silver white light, covering all the surrounding areas. Soon, Thor, Sif and others saw that a large number of ordinary people seemed to be expelled or guided. With eyes filled with confusion, they walked out of their houses and shops, and walked into the distance. Soon, the surrounding environment was empty. Except for Jane, Daisy, Eric and others around them, there was no ordinary person or Muggle. Seeing this, Thor and others were suddenly full of surprise. Although they had discovered from the details that Lockhart was quite powerful before, they still felt a little shocked when they saw so many people being easily controlled and guided. At this moment, Lockhart looked at the effective Muggle repelling charm and nodded slightly. If it were in the Harry Potter world, the Muggle repelling charm would not be so effective. It seems that the Marvel world is more friendly to wizards. Then, before everyone could ask, they looked at the approaching destroyer and became alert. Thor led his men to retreat. Sif, Fandral and others raised their weapons and attacked. Lockhart, who was standing next to him, also clenched his wand tightly, with a cautious attitude. Although the plot was a close call, this was also relative to Thor. For a wizard like him who was not from Asgard, it was just a joke. Boom! Exclamation mark. Looking at the people not far away, the destroyer armor was walking, while emitting a torrent of hot flames from its head, destroying the cars, buildings and other things that were in the way. It was as if it was demonstrating. A huge explosion sounded in the ears of Lockhart and others, and everyone's faces became more cautious. Lockhart, what do you have? Can you hinder the destroyer? If not, we will start the battle first. Fandral, one of the 3 warriors of Asgard, said in a somewhat hurried tone. After hearing this, Lockhart said in a deep voice, "Okay." As soon as the voice fell, he quickly waved the magic wand in his hand, transformed quickly, transformed quickly, transformed quickly. A large number of transformation spells were controlled by Lockhart, and the soil around the destroyer's feet swirled like flowing water, causing waves. Almost at the same time, the destroyer began to sink, as if he was trapped in a quagmire. The destroyer felt the restraint of the soil and rocks, struggled hard, stretched out his arms, and tried to slap the ground to get out. But as soon as his arms were stretched out, he found that the surrounding soil and rocks formed a large number of ropes, covering his hands layer by layer. No matter how he twisted, he just sank faster and faster. Seeing this, Lockhart's heart flashed with a hint of joy. He had been thinking about how to trap the destroyer efficiently these days. As for killing the destroyer, he didn't have such an idea of getting to the sky in one step. The key to magic in the Harry Potter world is a wonderful flexibility. As for its attack power, to be honest, it can't be said to be very bad, but it is indeed not as good as the magic in the Marvel world. So Lockhart used the wonderful transformation spell to change the surrounding terrain. Using the principle of the Quagmire Swamp, the destroyer was trapped. In the past few days, in order to maximize the effect of the quagmire, he has read a lot of books about the formation of quagmires and swamps. Emotional will is an important factor in casting magic in the Harry Potter world, but if there is knowledge as the skeleton, will as the soul, and sufficient magic power as flesh and blood, the effect will be doubled. I tried it today, and was really satisfied. The destroyer seemed to find that struggling no longer worked, so his head began to burn with raging fire, emitting a lot of energy fluctuations, as if he would launch a devastating attack in the next moment. Sif next to him didn't need Lockhart to remind her. With her rich combat experience, she found an opportunity to lurk nearby early. The destroyer was just about to launch an attack and break free from the predicament. Almost instantly, Sif fell from the sky, and the artifact sword turned into a spear, piercing the destroyer's head fiercely. The destroyer seemed to sense something and moved slightly, as if he wanted to avoid the upcoming attack, but it was too late. Bang! Crack! Crack! The spear first hit the destroyer's neck, piercing through the Subaru metal on the surface, making a crisp sound. Then, the sharp artifact spear directly penetrated the entire destroyer's neck until it broke through the ground. The originally surging flame energy in his hair disappeared instantly, as if it had crashed. Seeing this, Sif smiled. But Lockhart did not relax his vigilance. He knew that in the original plot, the destroyer was not so easy to deal with. Soon, the destroyer's whole body began to move like flowing water. His arms quietly broke the shackles of the earth and rocks, and his head turned quickly to face Sif. At the same time, the flame energy in the destroyer's head suddenly emerged and became more and more agitated, as if he would launch a shocking attack in the next moment. Boom. The hot and boiling flame torrent spurted out from the destroyer's head and shot towards Sif. Although Sif quickly avoided the incoming attack with her quick reaction, the torrent of fire still caused great damage to the surrounding buildings, making a deafening sound. At the same time, the destroyer quickly broke free from the restraints of the ground and stepped towards Lockhart and Thor. Quickly transform. Lockhart had just cast a transformation spell, and the destroyer was very alert. It had not forgotten the trouble caused by the restraints just now. It directly sprayed a torrent of fire at Lockhart. Lockhart hurriedly dodged, and the spell was interrupted. Seeing this, the destroyer began to wantonly spray the torrent of fire around, causing a lot of damage. The Asgardian warriors could only dodge everywhere. 10,000 bullets, because the distance was too close. Lockhart had just launched an attack and immediately faced the destroyer's torrent of fire. He had to interrupt the spell and cast a speed-up spell on himself to quickly avoid the incoming attack. For a moment, the entire battlefield was burning with flames of destruction, and there were ruins everywhere. Everyone avoided the upcoming attack, and could not launch any attack. Thor saw the large ruins and his comrades who were running for their lives. He was stunned on the spot, and it was unknown what he was thinking. His eyes became more and more complicated. Stop fighting, Loki. In the new book period, the follow-up data is extremely important. Readers who like this book are requested to pin it to the top, so that you can easily see the latest chapters. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15, White Fresh. Thor's overwhelming combat power. Stop fighting, Loki. Thor's loud roar came from the battlefield. Suddenly, the destroyer not far away seemed to have heard something and stopped the next torrent of flames. He fixed his eyes on Thor not far away. At this time, Harold, Sif, Fandral and others ran to Thor. Thor, why did you come back? The destroyer is too dangerous. Hearing Sif's anxious words, Thor waved his hand slightly to refuse and said, as if explaining, if you continue to fight, your lives will be in danger. The root of all these problems is me. I want to talk to Loki. As he said that, Thor motioned Sif and others to stay where they were and walked forward. He walked in front of the destroyer, staring at the destroyer's face, as if he could see Loki's appearance at this time through his back. Thor was silent for a moment and said in a somewhat sad tone, Loki, no matter what I did wrong, I made you do this. I'm really sorry. I don't want to see such a meaningless war continue. Kill me. Everything will be over. Hearing what Thor said, the destroyer hesitated to take action, and the raging flames in the armored head began to gradually shrink, as if he had completely stopped. Seeing this, Thor's mouth faintly outlined a smile, as if he had thought of something. Suddenly, bang, the destroyer turned halfway and punched Thor directly, drawing an arc in the sky. Seeing this scene, Lockhart's eyes twitched slightly. What a poor child who indulges in fantasy. Boom. Thor's body hit the ground violently, making a loud bang. A large amount of glass and metal scratched Thor's body, and his body was covered with scars. The wounds were mixed with tiny glass and sharp metal fragments, and blood gradually flowed out along the wounds. Soon, a pool of blood appeared faintly on the ground. Jane, who was not far away, saw this and ran forward like crazy, ignoring others' attempts to stop her. She picked up Thor, who was lying on the ground, unconscious and seriously injured. Lockhart, Sif, and Eric also quickly surrounded him. Seeing Jane, whose hands were covered with blood, constantly reaching out to pick up fragments for Thor, Lockhart sighed slightly. picked up his wand, and waved it slightly. Wingardium Leviosa. In an instant, a floating spell was cast, and Jane Foster floated to the side uncontrollably, revealing Thor's body covered with scars. At the same time, all the glass, metal and other fragments on Thor's body floated out, and as Lockhart waved his hand, they immediately floated in the corner next to him. Looking at Thor's wounds that were constantly bleeding, Lockhart held the wand, and waved it slightly, and a bottle of brown-green potion floated above Thor. Potion, dietary supplement. With a slight shake of the wand, dietary supplement flowed out of the bottle, automatically floating, covering the wounds on Thor's body. Seeing Thor's wounds healing quickly, Lockhart seemed to have thought of something. He took out a few bottles of distilled water again, controlled the float to Sif and others, and introduced, "This is the magic potion, distilled water. It is very effective in healing external injuries. You can also use it. Recover your own injuries." Everyone looked at Thor's wounds healing quickly. Sif and others were surprised. They did not use them directly, but put them away. This is a good thing to save life. He was not seriously injured just now. It would be a waste to use it now. Before he could say thank you to Lockhart, Sif and others' pupils shrank. They found that, although all the wounds on Thor's body surface were healed, his life breath became weaker and weaker, as if he was about to die. Suddenly, they were a little at a loss. Jane next to him looked at Thor, who had been unconscious, her face full of anxiety. The destroyer not far away seemed to have sensed Thor's situation, and turned around and walked away. It seemed that he knew that Thor would die after one blow. Lockhart looked at Thor calmly, his life force becoming weaker and weaker, without any panic expression. Because he knew that Thor, the god of thunder, was about to return. Shield base. Researchers around Thor's hammer Mjolnir, holding detection instruments, were somewhat doubtful. Sir, item 084 has abnormal fluctuations, and a large amount of energy is detected to be continuously released. Not good. The wind is blowing. The hammer is moving. Sir, the hammer is actually moving. The leading researcher held the phone, facing the strong wind caused by Mjolnir, and shouted loudly into the phone. Soon, Coulson's voice came from the phone. Pay attention to collecting data. Okay, sir. Immediately, Coulson, who was observing near the destroyer battlefield, hung up the phone. He just saw the battle between Sif and the destroyer, and also noticed the scene where Lockhart cast magic to trap the destroyer. He was terrified by the destroyer's wanton attack, and was also doubtful about the relationship between Thor and the destroyer. Finally, his eyes focused on Thor's quickly healing wound through the telescope, and his eyes flashed with thought. As for the news from the phone just now, it is obvious that it is definitely related to the current battle. Boom. A white line appeared in the sky, mixed with the sound of breaking through the air. Thor's hammer Mjolnir flew towards Thor quickly. When Sif and others saw it, they were immediately surprised. Lockhart also hurriedly led Eric and others to evacuate. A group of people stood not far away, and witnessed with their own eyes that Thor, who was originally dying, raised Thor's hammer Mjolnir. A large amount of thunder surrounded him, as if he was surrendering. Everyone couldn't help but look sideways, including the retreating destroyer, who turned his head to look at Thor at this moment. Almost in a few seconds, Thor, holding Mjolnir, wearing golden armor and a red battle robe, stood in front of everyone, exuding a fascinating aura. Without waiting for Jane, Sif and others to come forward, Thor stretched out his hand to signal everyone to stop coming. He held the thunder hammer and fought with the running destroyer. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Thor swung Thor's hammer vigorously, making a whistling sound. He threw it towards the destroyer. Bang! The originally indestructible destroyer was hit by the flying Thor's hammer, making a huge collision sound, and was immediately knocked away. Then, without waiting for the destroyer to react, Thor held up the returning Mjolnir, soared into the air, and rotated Thor's hammer at high speed, affecting the changes in the weather of the world. For a moment, dark clouds gathered in the sky, and the roaring sound of thunder came one after another. Seeing this, the destroyer stood up, jumped up, and attacked Thor in the sky. At the same time, a torrent of hot flames came from his head, shooting towards Thor's direction. But then, Thor rushed down, holding Mjolnir, mixed with a lot of thunder, and smashed towards the destroyer. Boom. The torrent of hot flames was immediately extinguished by a lot of thunder, and Thor's hammer smashed the destroyer's head fiercely, smashing it from head to toe. The battle was a complete crushing victory. Lockhart and the others saw with their own eyes that as Thor smashed the destroyer to the ground, a large amount of dust covered the battlefield. After the dust cleared, Thor walked out, and behind him were a large amount of wreckage of the destroyer. P.S. I'm about to return to the Harry Potter world. I wonder if you would like to see anything. Welcome to leave a message in the comments area. In the new book period, the reading data is extremely important. Readers who like this book are requested to pin it to the top, so that you can see the latest chapters. Chapter 16. Felix Coulson's Embarrassment. Thor, is this what you usually wear? Jean walked in front of Thor, looking at him wearing light golden armor and red battle robe, and asked with a surprised tone and curiosity. Haha, of course, I always wear this in Asgard. Lockhart stood by, and watched Thor and Jane's intimate discussion lightly. He would not interrupt the two people whispering, and he would naturally not do such a very annoying behavior. However, he saw that Sif's face next to him was not very good. Maybe this scene was a bit irritating to her. Lockhart thought silently. Then system, draw a lottery for me. Draw 20 times in a row. If you don't draw now, when will you draw? Thor has just recovered his strength. He can witness his fighting power just now. It's like playing with him. This lottery will definitely bring a lot of gains. If you don't draw again, he will go back to Asgard later. At that time, when they meet again, I'm afraid they will wait for the New York War. And in the Marvel world where he is, will the New York War break out? He was very aware of his own somewhat cowardly character, and would not allow potential risks to threaten him. The thought turned, and he stopped thinking about it. After all, it was too far away. Besides, the results of the 20 draws were already out. Lockhart looked at the light green system light screen that appeared in front of him, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining advanced combat experience. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining advanced thunder affinity. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining a copy of Asgard Warrior Training Knowledge. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining a copy of the prototype of Thor's power. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining the combat skill, Thunderstorm. Looking at the results of 20 consecutive draws, although Lockhart controlled himself not to laugh out loud, the smile in his eyes could not be hidden. A big harvest, really a big harvest. Worthy of being Thor, the god of thunder. He got a treasure. So he immediately said to the system, draw again, consume 20,000 reputation points, and draw 20 more times. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining the combat skill, summon thunder. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining a high-level combat experience. Ding, congratulations to the host for obtaining the Asgard Hunting Encyclopedia. Oh. Seeing another 20 consecutive draws, Lockhart sighed slightly. Sure enough, the good things were almost out in the first time. The second time was mostly repeated, and there were some highlights occasionally, but not many. But it was enough. As a wizard, you can't be too greedy. The current recognition has reached the limit. If you want to get Thor's powerful strength through the lottery, the recognition must reach more than 80. Thor Odinson, 6900ths. After a glance, seeing Thor's recognition reaching 69, Lockhart thought silently in his heart. No hurry. Just wait and see. As a wizard, he will have many opportunities to deal with Asgard in the future. Not to mention the relationship between him and Thor. If he doesn't make good use of it, he won't be called Lockhart. Lockhart, thank you so much for this time. By the way, your potion dietary supplement is very effective. After Thor finished talking with Jane, he looked at Lockhart next to him, hurriedly stepped forward and said gratefully, looking at Thor who was emitting a heroic spirit in front of him. Hearing the grateful voice, Lockhart smiled and said, this is what I should do. At the same time, he waved his wand lightly, and 5 bottles of brown-green dietary supplement appeared in front of Thor. Since you think Bakeson is good, these 5 bottles are for you. You may need them in the future. Seeing Thor's embarrassed attitude, and wanting to refuse, Lockhart said quickly, don't worry, it's not for free. I just saw that the destroyer has been destroyed by you. I want to take some fragments to study. Just consider it as a reward for these Bakeson. Is it okay? Hearing Lockhart's request, Thor patted his chest and said generously, haha, it's a small matter. It's all a small matter. You are my friend, and the destroyer has been destroyed, leaving these wreckages. These are all for you. Hearing Thor's generous agreement, Lockhart showed a bright smile on his face. He likes such a big dog. However, if he took it all directly, it would seem a bit greedy, which is a bit inconsistent with his personality. Be willing to give up. Only by giving up can you gain. There will be more opportunities to deal with Thor and Asgard in the future. You should not let the future pay for yourself for the sake of temporary greed. So Lockhart reached out and took out a small bottle of light golden potion. He gave it to Thor with some pain in his heart and introduced it to Thor, saying, Thor, I really need these materials, and I won't take advantage of you. This is the Felixi. In our wizarding world, it is also considered a top potion. It is said to improve luck, allowing the user to perform at their best and make their wishes come true, just like the Child of Destiny. Hearing this, Thor's eyes lit up instantly. He was not polite and took it directly, saying, good stuff, good stuff. I haven't seen it in Asgard yet, thank you, Lockhart. Seeing Thor take the Felixi without hesitation, Lockhart's face flashed with a trace of pain. This was the last trump card he bought for this world travel, waiting to use it when his life was in danger. He spent 600 gold galleons alone, and he also paid a lot of favors in the middle. However, looking at the remains of a large number of destroyers not far away, Lockhart's original pain was slightly calmed down. Just by selling these precious materials, I should be able to get several bottles of Felixi. I hope those alchemists know the value of it. Immediately, without thinking too much, the remains of the destroyer are flying over here. He waved his wand directly, and a flying spell was cast. All the remains of the destroyer automatically flew in front of Lockhart. With another light wave, all the remains entered the space bag on his waist. Coulson, who had just arrived, looked at the transaction that had just been completed. Thor held the Felixir in one hand, and Lockhart took the remains of the destroyer in the other hand. An awkward smile appeared on his face. He was still preparing to get some benefits, but from this posture, it seemed that this wizard professor had taken them all. There was no time to communicate with Lockhart, and Thor walked up to him. After a conversation, the relationship between the two sides was instantly clear. At the same time, in order to curry favor with the relationship, he had to return all the computers, notes and other materials that had been taken away from Jane. However, Coulson looked at Jane, Eric and others next to him, and his eyes lit up. These people, they knew everything about S.H.I.E.L.D. More importantly, they have a good relationship with Thor and Lockhart, although they cannot use coercive means. However, obtaining intelligence is the specialty of S.H.I.E.L.D. Lockhart saw Coulson's eyes and sneered slightly. How could he not know what S.H.I.E.L.D. was thinking? Since he came through, he has been careful about his words and deeds, not only to enrich his personality in front of a big boss like Ancient One. It is also for contact with agents, like S.H.I.E.L.D. in the future. A lot of the information he shared is true, but if you really believe it all, it's really haha. After crossing to the Marvel world, especially during this period of time, Lockhart knew that he could not avoid contact with S.H.I.E.L.D. And he is not the kind of maverick. Whether it is studying magic in the future or trading resources, gathering the power of the crowd is the best choice. In the Harry Potter world, he is a well-known writer with his own network of contacts, and he also has the identity of a Hogwarts professor. Naturally, it is quite convenient to act. But the Marvel world is completely different. He has not yet come into contact with a decent wizard organization or extraordinary forces. The only organization he knows inside and out is S.H.I.E.L.D. Later, when collecting resources or exchanging knowledge, he must rely on S.H.I.E.L.D.'s platform. As long as he takes out something, S.H.I.E.L.D. will be a big dog in front of him. This is plundering resources through magic technology. P.S. I will return to the Harry Potter world soon. I wonder if you want to see anything. Welcome to leave a message in the comment area. In the new book period, the reading data is extremely important. Readers who like this book are asked to pin it to the top, so that you can see the latest chapters. Chapter 17, The Deal with S.H.I.E.L.D. Boom. A beam of teleportation light with huge energy fluctuations and colorful like a rainbow came crashing down, covering Thor, Sif and others. After a few seconds, as the beam of light disappeared, only a mark of arrival from the Rainbow Bridge was left on the ground. At this time, Thor, Sif and others rushed to Asgard through the Rainbow Bridge. Lockhart looked at this scene indifferently. However, when he saw a pattern similar to a magic circle imprinted on the ground, his eyes lit up. He took out his mobile phone and took pictures to keep for future magic research. Soon, after Lockhart finished these trivial things, he walked to Jane and Eric and asked, "Okay, Thor's work is temporarily over now. What are your plans for the future?" Hearing Lockhart's question, Eric thought for a while and said, "We have basically collected data for the research we are going to do. The next step is to prepare to return to the University of Washington to organize the thesis. Daisy, Jane and others will also have to start preparing for graduation." Hearing this, Lockhart nodded. As a university professor in his previous life, he naturally knew the importance of academic studies. Even if she is Thor's girlfriend, she still cannot graduate if her thesis is not completed and her GPA is not up to standard, let alone find a good job. In this regard, Lockhart was not going to disturb them, but after thinking about it, he took out 3 amulets and handed them to Eric and the other 2. Seeing their puzzled eyes, Lockhart explained, "Thor asked us to take care of Jane and you. This is a magic amulet. If you take it with you, it can warn you in advance if you encounter danger. If something happens, remember to call me, and I will find a way to see if it can be solved." As he said, Lockhart handed over a note with his phone number. After Eric put it away, he expressed his gratitude. After seeing this, Carlson next to him took advantage of the communication between the two parties just ended. Seizing the opportunity, he picked up the information at hand, walked up, and said to Jane gently, "Ms. Foster, this is the information we borrowed before. Please take it and see if there is anything missing." Jane took the information in her hand, snorted coldly, and began to look through it to see if there was anything missing. Taking this opportunity, Carlson immediately said to Lockhart standing next to him, "Professor Lockhart, can I call you that?" Seeing Lockhart nodded, he continued, "We are SHIELD, an agency specializing in dealing with global anomalies. We are somewhat interested in the magic potion dietary supplement you just took out. I wonder if we can trade it. I remember that you don't have an official identity yet. Our SHIELD can help provide it, or other resources can be used for trading." Hearing Carlson's negotiating tone, Lockhart was a little moved. As expected of a professional agent, he found the point he needed most at once, and then proposed a transaction. The object of the transaction was the dietary supplement he had just taken out. He just shared it with everyone, which means that the dietary supplement itself is in the category of tradable, and the probability of failure of the transaction is very small. It seems that the other party wants to use the first successful transaction to start further cooperation. However, if it weren't for his current identity, a powerful wizard and a good friend of Thor, I'm afraid the tone would not be so gentle now. TSK, New York City, Brook Street, Minerva Cafe. Minerva Cafe is a famous cat cafe in New York. Residents nearby like to come here, drink coffee and pet cats. Lockhart sat in a seat by the window, picked up a cup of coffee in front of the table, took a sip, and felt the mellow aroma of coffee. Then he put it on the table and slowly stroked the young white cat in his hand, enjoying its soft fur. While stroking, he looked into the distance, as if he was admiring the scenery, and as if he was waiting for a guest. Soon, Carlson, who was dressed up carefully, came in with a small suitcase. Sitting in front of Lockhart, he said apologetically, "I'm sorry, Professor Lockhart, because we have been following the formal procedures to ensure that everything is foolproof, and the procedures are a bit cumbersome. I've kept you waiting for a week. Here is your ID. Don't worry, there will be no problem. There is a bank card with 10 million Minerva dollars in it." As he said, Carlson handed over a file bag. After Lockhart took it, he seemed to be somewhat sarcastic, or said with emotion, "In 1 week, I have indeed seen the efficiency of SHIELD. I have to say, you are really thorough in your work." As if sensing the sarcasm in Lockhart's tone, Carlson smiled awkwardly, and did not take over the conversation. He directly changed the subject, looking at some cute cats around, and said in a tone that seemed a little surprised, Professor Lockhart, I know you like small animals very much. When I see the place you chose, do you also raise some small animals in your daily life? Although he knew that Coulson was obviously changing the subject, Lockhart cooperated very well and said, of course, as an adventurer, I like small animals, but I prefer those ferocious magical animals. Well, prepare for the appearance of the magical animals later. Without waiting for Coulson to ask, Lockhart directly extended his hand and swept, and 4 bottles of potion appeared on the table, 2 bottles of brown-green Bakeson, and 2 bottles of light yellow Poso. He said leisurely, okay, this is what your shield wants. Magic potion Bakeson, wherever there is a wound, just apply it gently, and it will heal quickly. Magic potion Poso, drink it, unless the potion master specifically poisons it, general toxins can be directly removed. Hearing this, Coulson showed a gentle smile on his face, put the suitcase on the table, opened it, and carefully placed the 4 bottles of potion in the middle. After taking the suitcase back, he immediately said, thank you Professor Lockhart for the potion. I hope our cooperation can continue. Lockhart nodded, said briefly, and stopped talking. Looking into the distance through the glass next to him, it was as if he was admiring the scenery. Coulson was not surprised to see this. This week, they said they were processing a legal identity for Lockhart, but in fact, with the ability of their shield, 1 hour was considered too much. The main purpose was to obtain relevant information about the wizard Professor from Eric and portray his character image. After analysis, the other party is a typical scholar-type character. Although he is a little cold, he has a different enthusiasm for magic than ordinary people. Well, he has the flavor of a mad scientist. Of course, delaying this period of time also contains some tentative flavors, to see Lockhart's attitude of cooperation, and determine the subsequent plans. Now it seems that the other party is not opposed, which means that cooperation can continue in the future. Looking at Lockhart, who has no desire to communicate, and seems very cold, Coulson said very tactfully, Mr. Lockhart, you slowly taste the coffee here, then I will leave first. I hope that next time, we can carry out further cooperation. Hearing Coulson's words, Lockhart nodded, and when Coulson left, he added, by the way, Coulson, I forgot to remind you to tell your companions that ordinary muggles cannot see or approach the house where the muggle repelling curse is cast. Don't waste your energy. Hearing what Lockhart said, Coulson's heart trembled, smiled, and left directly. In the past few days, S.H.I.E.L.D. wanted to send people to sneak into the villa purchased by Lockhart and install some monitoring equipment. However, the problem is that they clearly know where the villa is, but every agent will become very confused before he reaches the door and automatically walk to other places. As if being controlled, he can't get in at all. Now it seems that this plan has completely failed. Watching Coulson leave the cafe, Lockhart didn't care. With the current strength of S.H.I.E.L.D., it is a fool's dream to want to crack the magic. What's more, the wizard world has been studying how to shield muggles for thousands of years. If it was easily cracked by S.H.I.E.L.D., the wizard world would have been discovered by muggles long ago. Looking at the file in his hand, Lockhart put it away. Continue to look through the glass next to him at a tall hole not far away. Feel the very secret energy fluctuations coming from the other party, and the thinking in his eyes. He chose to settle in New York, and there was a reason for it. His goal is very simple and pure. It's for magic. For the magic of Kamar-Taj. If he guessed correctly, the other side should be the 3 major temples of Kamar-Taj, the New York Temple. P.S. It will return to the Harry Potter event soon. I wonder if you have anything you want to see. Welcome to leave a message in the comments area. In the new book period, the reading data is extremely important. Please pin it to the top of the page for readers who like this book, so that you can see the latest chapters. Chapter 18. Cassilis's Doubts in the New York Temple. Lockhart sat in a cafe. He stroked his cat, while looking at the New York Temple not far away. His hesitation gradually turned into determination. He came to the Marvel world, not to participate in any plot, but to study magic, and improve his magic level. This is what he is good at and what he loves. When it comes to magic in the Marvel world, Kamar-Taj and the Ancient One are inevitable. If Lockhart keeps hiding from them, he can certainly do it. as long as he doesn't make any big trouble on Earth. In his current state, Kamar-Taj or the Ancient One may not pay attention to him. But if that's the case, then he shouldn't participate in Thor's plot. He won't design an image of a scholar or professor for himself. All his actions are for magic. Making friends with Thor is for the magic of Asgard. Establishing a personality is for the magic of Kamar-Taj. Lockhart understood the importance of the first impression very early. A good first impression can make all actions more effective. This is why he has been establishing a scholar and professor's personality, just to get along with Kamar-Taj. After contacting the Ancient One, gain her favor, then get her recognition, and even receive her teachings. The Supreme Sorcerer is the top wizard on Earth and even in the universe. In order to protect the Earth, he fought against the Lords of many dimensions. It can be seen that he is strong and his character is clear. Compared with her, Dumbledore is a scumbag. Although according to the plot, it can be guessed that the Ancient One has the ability to predict the future. But so what? If he can really predict the future, it would be better. He is not a villain who is determined to destroy the world. In his previous life, he was a very pure person. As a professor at a well-known university, he focused on academic research. He also has a certain reputation in the academic world. And he is obsessed with magic in his next life. He just wants to study magic, explore the truth, and seek the secrets of magic. There are really few people as pure as him. If the Ancient One knows him, he should accept him. He is very calm about this. However, everything has risks. You should have a plan B for doing anything. Being cautious, he would not be so stupid as to directly enter the New York Temple, call out his name, look for the Ancient One, and introduce himself. This is either crazy or stupid. His plan B is, it has been 30 days since I arrived in the Marvel world. You can choose to return freely within 24 hours. After 24 hours, you will automatically return to the Harry Potter world. Looking at the light screen in front of him, Lockhart's eyes were deep. If he really encountered the risk of force majeure, he could only hide back in the Harry Potter world. What he would do in the future to survive, that was unknown. Because he also didn't know how crazy he would be after regaining his life and falling into despair again. New York Temple. Lockhart carried the magic suitcase in his left hand and held the magic wand in his right hand. He looked at the door opposite, walked to the door, and knocked gently. Dang, dang, dang. Click, click, click. As a crisp knock on the door sounded, soon, a faint sound of footsteps sounded, and the door slowly opened with a click. Lockhart looked at the young white man in a short robe opposite him, and took a serious look at the ring on his right hand. He smiled gently and said, "Hello, my name is Lockhart, and I'm a wizard who is going to settle in New York. I feel the magic fluctuations emanating from here, so I came to visit my fellow New Yorkers." As he spoke, he waved his hand, and a bottle of light green magic potion appeared in front of him, and introduced it. This is a magic recovery potion, which can restore the energy in the body. A small gift, not a respect. The wizard opposite was stunned after hearing it, as if he did not expect Lockhart's polite self-introduction and gift. But he quickly reacted, and hurriedly caught the magic potion floating in front of him, and said, "Mr. Lockhart, I'm a wizard apprentice. Why don't you come in first? I'll talk to my mentor Cassilis." Hearing this, Lockhart raised his eyebrows slightly. Cassilis, this wizard, if he remembered correctly. It seems that he will become a follower of Dormammu, the Lord of the Dark Dimension in the future. It seems that he should still be a standard Kamar-Taj wizard. However, later, the thought turned, and he put these ideas deep in his heart. Lockhart looked at the wizard apprentice who extended his hand to invite him to enter the New York Temple, smiled and thanked him, and stepped into the temple. After entering the New York Temple, looking at the spacious space and the scattered Kamar-Taj wizards inside, he slightly sensed the energy fluctuations, and found that their strength was not weak, so he didn't think much about it. Then he followed the wizard apprentice who led the way in front, sat on the sofa not far away, and waited quietly. In a room deep in the New York Temple, Cassilis was flipping through the magic book in his hand. Bang, bang, bang. Suddenly, there was a crisp knock on the door outside, and Cassilis frowned slightly. "Please come in. Teacher, just now there was a wizard who called himself Lockhart. He said he wanted to settle down in New York, and came to visit you specially. He also brought a gift, saying that it was a potion that could restore magic power. After entering the house, the wizard apprentice in short robes said to his mentor Cassilis. "Huh." Cassilis said with a light exclamation, "Lead the way." Settling down in New York is not new. Coming to visit him in the New York temple aroused his curiosity. Soon, Cassilis followed the wizard apprentice in front of him into the hall of the temple. Looking at Lockhart sitting on the sofa and feeling the breath emanating from his body, a trace of doubt or uncertainty flashed in his eyes. He walked up to Lockhart and introduced himself. "Hello, I'm Cassilis, the caretaker of the Kamar-Taj New York temple. What can I do for you?" After hearing Cassilis' introduction, Lockhart explained, "I'm a wizard who is planning to settle in New York. I felt a strong magical atmosphere here before, so I wanted to visit my hosts in New York in advance to prevent misunderstandings due to poor communication later. Of course, I also want to ask if there is a gathering place for wizards in New York. If we can exchange magical knowledge or trade magical items, that would be the best." After hearing Lockhart's explanation, Cassilis once again felt the aura emanating from Lockhart's body. His eyes were a little complicated, and he stretched out his hand to signal the wizard apprentice next to him to leave. After the apprentice left, he said to Lockhart in a deep voice, "Mr. Lockhart, if I'm not mistaken, you should be from another world, right?" Hearing Cassilis' question, Lockhart said very frankly, "Yes, I'm not from this world. Before, I accidentally drifted to this world because of space magic, so I thought about settling in New York for the time being. At the same time, I also want to exchange magic with the wizards and mages in this world." At this point, Lockhart's tone clearly revealed a hint of doubt. "What's wrong? Are you not welcome to visit us from other worlds?" Faced with Lockhart's frankness, Cassilis was a little surprised. After thinking for a while, he said, "It's not that we are not welcome, because the duty of our New York temple is to resist the invasion of those evil dimensions. In your case, I need to report to the Supreme Sorcerer." Hearing this, Lockhart nodded very obediently. Then he watched Cassilis holding the hanging ring, opening a sparking portal, and entering Kamar-Taj. After seeing the portal disappear, he returned to his sofa and sat down. Since he had decided to enter the New York temple and contact the wizards of Kamar-Taj, and even the Ancient One, he had naturally planned various plans. If the other party did not realize that he was from another world, then he was just a wizard who settled in New York. He could send gifts, make friends, and have a chance to exchange magic with each other later. If his identity from another world was discovered, being honest was actually the best choice. He was not a villain, nor an evil wizard. He exuded the aura of a scholar and professor. Of course, it might not be right to say that he was harmless, but he was a positive character anyway. The best result would naturally be like now, and he could meet the Ancient One as a matter of course. He could even ask to join Kamar-Taj. As for the worst result, don't forget his plan B soon. A portal with sparks appeared in front of Lockhart. Cassilis stepped out and said to Lockhart, who was sitting on the sofa, "Mr. Lockhart, please come with me to see the Supreme Sorcerer." Then he extended his hand to signal Lockhart to follow him through the portal and enter Kamar-Taj. Lockhart naturally went there with pleasure. The magic of Kamar-Taj. Here I come. P.S. It will return to the Harry Potter event soon. I wonder if you have anything you want to read. You are welcome to leave a message in the comment area. In the new book period, the reading data is extremely important. Readers who like this book are requested to pin it to the top so that you can easily see the latest chapters. Chapter 19, Return to the Harry Potter World. Searching for solidified world shuttle channels. Search successful. Teleporting. Transporting. Welcome the host back to the Harry Potter world. Warning, after staying in this world for 30 days, the soul will gradually be branded with the mark of this world. You need to leave this world in time to avoid being infected by the world's breath. In the Harry Potter world, in Lockhart's study, a faint light flashed. Lockhart, holding a magic suitcase in his left hand and a magic wand in his right hand, quietly emerged. In front of him, two piles of thick magic books floated. Just about to take out the magic wand and cast a spell to place the luggage. Result: Lockhart frowned slightly. You don't know until you compare. Only when you compare, you know that the Marvel world is the paradise of wizards. Alas. Feeling the magic power in his body that seemed to be stagnant, Lockhart sighed lightly. But when he thought of the gains from this Marvel trip, Lockhart showed a bright smile. He simply gained too much. Just the prototype of the power of Thor, obtained from Thor. Lockhart was very excited. Although he could not directly obtain Thor's strength, the prototype version of the power of Thor plus the high-level thunder affinity instantly raised his strength to a high level. However, recalling the previous entry into Kamar-Taj and meeting with the Ancient One, Lockhart looked at the ring on his right hand, and a strange look appeared on his face. This time, meeting the Ancient One was a little different from what he imagined. How to say it? It can't be said that it was not smooth. It was too smooth and weird. He met with the Ancient One directly and talked about being a wizard from another world. The other party was not surprised. Then he proposed to learn the magic of Kamar-Taj. The Ancient One did not refuse and even gave him a ring directly, asking him to borrow books from the library. This smoothness made him feel a little hairy. He quickly took out the gifts he prepared: white fresh water to recover from external injuries, blood tonic to restore ki and blood, magic water to restore magic power, and relievers to calm emotions, etc. Everything was carefully selected by Lockhart according to the characteristics of the Malay wizards of Kamar-Taj. The Ancient One accepted it directly, and in response to Lockhart's request, he said that he could occasionally guide Lockhart's magic practice. It all went too smoothly, beyond Lockhart's imagination, and even made him feel a little panic. He couldn't help but wonder if the Ancient One was going to fatten him up, and then kill him and eat him. No matter how you look at it, it looks like fattening him up. Well, when this thought came up, Lockhart instantly made himself laugh. The Ancient One shouldn't be such a person, right? Shouldn't he? Lockhart hid the thought deeply in his heart, and then followed Cassilis to the library. He directly selected a large number of books suitable for his current stage in the library. He didn't take them away directly, because the library didn't allow him to take out 3 books at most. Lockhart directly used the bug of the system time. After finding almost all the books, he directly applied for world travel and brought the books to the Harry Potter world. He was going to study it carefully and return to the Marvel world a month later. In short, the time point and the books remained unchanged, and no one would find out. Shouldn't he? Lockhart thought silently. Immediately, he picked up the magic wand and waved it lightly, and the 2 piles of books in front of him instantly floated into the bookcase next to him. Looking at the large number of magic books stored in the bookcase, Lockhart suddenly felt a sense of security in his heart. As a wizard, knowledge is extremely important. The next day, in the study, Lockhart leaned on the chair, and a thick magic book floated in front of him. It had been opened about 1/3, and as Lockhart waved his magic wand lightly, the book slowly turned the pages. The cover of the book was bronze in color, and the text on the cover was written in Latin. Master Tallow on runes. On the desk directly opposite Lockhart, a feather pen floated above a piece of white paper. As Lockhart's thoughts turned, the feather pen began to slowly record Lockhart's analysis and summary of runes. Runes are unique to Asgard mages and are the foundation of their spell casting. Unlike Midgard mages, we cast spells by leveraging the power of Vishanti to pry the power of elemental particles. Asgard mages use runes to pry elemental particles. Lockhart kept reading books from Kamar-Taj, sometimes showing a look of sudden realization, sometimes with a slight smile on his lips, and sometimes with a slight frown on his brows, as if he had encountered some doubts. As the pages of the book kept turning, Lockhart became more and more familiar with the Kamar-Taj mages. It was as if he had witnessed the growth of the Kamar-Taj mages over thousands of years and their contributions to protecting the earth. Suddenly, bang, 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 there was a banging sound coming from the window. Lockhart frowned slightly, turned his head, and looked at the glass next to him, and saw an owl really holding a letter, tapping the window lightly, revealing a look of sudden realization. Then he opened the window, let the owl fly in, fed it some food, and opened the envelope. Sure enough, it was just as he guessed. Lockhart thought silently. The content of the letter was about the launch of his new book, I'm Magic. Flourish and Blots reminded him not to forget to send the book and the launch 2 days later. Well, but no matter how Lockhart looked at it, he felt that Flourish and Blots was asking him for gold galleons. TSK TSK TSK. Immediately, Lockhart wrote a reply letter and gave it to the owl that had finished eating food, asking him to deliver it to Flourish and Blots. As for the new book launch, Lockhart, who had the memory of his original body, said it was so easy, especially when he saw the spells that his original body mastered and even created himself displayed in the system. Lockhart's mouth outlined a smile. Lockhart's brilliance, eyes shining, energetic, friendly, fragrant. 2 days later, Flourish and Blots. Lockhart was wearing a dark green dress and sitting in the lounge behind the bookstore, looking at the large number of books in front of him, including those placed around him. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, especially when he saw his own picture on the cover. He was even more delighted. This is a gold galleon. If you don't manage the household, you don't know how expensive it is. Last time, for fear of crossing into an unknown world, he spent a lot of gold galleons to buy magic items and magic potions to save his life. Although it can't be said that he went bankrupt, he also spent a lot of money. Now he needs to make up for it. Researching magic costs a lot of gold galleons. Besides, he has to buy another batch of magic potions when he returns to the Marvel world. Whether it is a transaction or a favor, it is hard currency. However, Lockhart thought about the textbooks that the original body ordered for Hogwarts school, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. The original body's habit of greed for money is good. He took his 7 books as textbooks, and he would be disrespectful to refuse. Although it is a bit shameless, the gold galleons in his hand are very real. At most, he can share more dry goods with the little wizards of Hogwarts. Make sure that their classes are worthwhile. Well, it is expected that after the latest book fees come out, there will be more than enough to buy another batch of magic potions. Diagon Alley. Hi, Hermione. Harry Potter, who had just returned to Diagon Alley from Nocturne Alley with Hagrid, greeted his good friend Hermione Granger. Hi, Harry, you're in Diagon Alley too? Hermione replied cheerfully, as if something happy happened today. Come on, Harry, let's go to Flourish and Blots, where Gilderoy Lockhart is holding a new book launch. As she spoke, Hermione pulled Harry forward. Harry was stunned for a moment and quickly greeted Hagrid next to him, and then followed Hermione to Flourish and Blots. Before entering Flourish and Blots, Harry saw a crowd of people queuing up and was immediately a little scared. Before he could react, Hermione pulled him directly into the bookstore. After entering, he saw the familiar Ron and Molly Weasley and others, and immediately felt much more at ease. Harry, you're here too. I didn't expect you to like Lockhart's novels. I knew Harry was the same as me. Harry, my mother is a fan of Lockhart, and she likes Gilderoy Lockhart very much. Hearing the voices of Ron, Molly and others, he didn't know how to respond. He could only look out from the crowd to see what kind of person Lockhart everyone had been talking about. Soon, a voice rang out throughout the bookstore. Dear friends, let us welcome Mr. Gilderoy Lockhart. In the new book period, follow-up reading data is extremely important. Readers who like this book are requested to pin it to the top so that they can easily see the latest chapters. Chapter 20 Harry Potter's Recognition. Friends, let's welcome Mr. Gilderoy Lockhart. Clap, clap, clap. As soon as the words fell, a large number of wizards in the bookstore applauded, especially the witches, who clapped the hardest. For a moment, the applause in the whole bookstore sounded like thunder. Along with the applause, Lockhart stepped out from the backstage of the bookstore. Harry Potter saw Lockhart at this moment, and his eyes subconsciously lit up. The light golden dress, combined with Lockhart's handsome face, looked energetic. The pair of light blue eyes exuded a bright light, which made people unable to help but stare. Many witches screamed, like crazy fans chasing stars. Hearing the fierce applause mixed with the screams of the witches, Lockhart showed a bright smile on his face. His bright teeth and gentle smile once again set off a new round of screams. Harry Potter could vaguely smell a faint fragrance, which made people slightly excited. Looking at the other party's gentle smile, he subconsciously felt a ray of goodwill towards Lockhart. Soon, as Lockhart pressed his hands downward, the applause and screams gradually faded. After everyone was quiet, Lockhart once again showed a gentle smile and said to everyone, "Hello, everyone, I'm Gilderoy Lockhart, recipient of the 3rd Class Order of Merlin, honorary member of the Anti-Dark Arts League. Of course, I have a new identity to announce to you here. future Hogwarts professor. In 10 days, I will take up the position of Professor of Defense against the Dark Arts at Hogwarts. However, this is not the most important thing. My role at this moment is a well-known writer serving my dear book fans. At this moment, at Flourish and Blots, everyone is welcome to attend my new book launch. I believe that my new book, The Magician, will not disappoint all book fans, and I hope that everyone will like my new book. Having said that, Lockhart looked at the somewhat crowded Flourish and Blots, especially the large number of which is crowded together. He raised his eyebrows and said jokingly, "It seems that there are really a lot of book fans here today. The space in Flourish and Blots is almost full." Having said that, Lockhart raised his hands, focused his mind on the hanging ring in his right hand, stretched out his hand and pushed, drawing a red flame ring in the air. At the same time, a large number of red flame threads and several runes appeared in the ring, connected together along a fixed trajectory, showing a mysterious pattern. Then, Lockhart controlled his hands to clap lightly, and then made a pulling gesture, as if he wanted to open up the space in front of him. Self-created rune magic, space extension. Instant. As Lockhart pulled the space, many wizards seemed to hear the space making a crackling sound, as if it was forced to open up. Soon, the space of Flourish and Blots doubled, and the originally crowded crowd subconsciously walked towards the empty space. Suddenly, the entire new book launch seemed much more relaxed. Many wizards, including Hermione, Ron, Harry Potter and others, opened their mouths slightly, with a look of shock on their faces. Seeing this, Lockhart said, "Okay, I believe everyone is much more comfortable now. I declare that the launch of my new book The Magic Me has officially begun." As soon as Lockhart's voice fell, the wizards in the bookstore acted instantly and began to discuss in whispers. "Ah, Lockhart is so handsome. This smile is really addictive. I like Lockhart today. This magic is so charming. Wondrous casting, worthy of being a well-known adventurer. Such a profound casting technique has been mastered. Compared, I'm really ashamed. Now I'm not even familiar with combat spells. I didn't expect Lockhart to master wondrous casting. So why is he so famous, strong, can write, and even promote? It would be strange if such a person is not popular." Seeing everyone discussing, Lockhart's mouth curled up a smile. This is his innovative product that combined the runes of Asgard, the casting method of Kamar-Taj, and the spells of the Harry Potter world in the past few days. In fact, when it comes to innovation, it can't be said that there is a deep subversion in it. To a large extent, it is just a combination, and the combat aspect is very reluctant. But at this moment, looking at everyone's shocked expressions, Lockhart was still secretly happy. Sorry, please make way. We are from the Daily Prophet and need to take a photo of Mr. Lockhart." Amid the discussion, a short reporter holding a radio shouted loudly. In the spacious space at this moment, it was easy for the reporter to walk in front of Lockhart and start taking photos. Click, click, click. The shutter sounds of the cameras rang out, and white light flashed. Lockhart's handsome and unrestrained image quietly appeared in the camera. At the same time, Lockhart also looked at the thin boy on the left in the crowd. Looking at his thin body, the slight stains on his face, and the lightning-like scar on his forehead, they looked at each other with a smile in their eyes, and nodded slightly to show their friendliness. The reporter on the side seemed to see Harry Potter from Lockhart's sight, so he immediately took Harry Potter to Lockhart's side and shouted loudly, "Harry Potter is here! Harry Potter is here!" As he said, he was ready to take a group photo of the two. At this moment, Lockhart slightly extended his hand to signal to stop taking pictures, and said to the wizard in the bookstore, "I have to say that Flourish and Blots is a good place. It brought me good luck. Our savior came to my new book conference. In return, I will give the 7 books I wrote as gifts to our savior Harry Potter." As he said, Lockhart took 7 books from the side and handed them to Harry Potter next to him. At the same time, he secretly cast a floating spell on the 7 heavy books so that Harry Potter could easily pick them up. Facing Harry Potter's somewhat nervous and surprised eyes, Lockhart whispered to comfort him, "Harry, you may feel a little uncomfortable being watched by everyone. Don't worry, just bear with it, and it will pass." As he said, he gently extended his hand and touched Harry's forehead. In an instant, a simple rune appeared quietly. Rune, clean. With a glimmer of light, the stains on Harry Potter's body disappeared immediately. Then, he pulled Harry Potter to his side, smiled brightly, and signaled the reporter to continue taking pictures. Click, click, click. The shutter sounded, white light flashed, and the photo of Lockhart and Harry Potter appeared in the camera. After the photo was taken, Lockhart took out a magic amulet in front of many wizards, and the subtle power of thunder could be vaguely felt from the amulet. Then Lockhart put it on Harry Potter's book and whispered, "Harry, I just felt a trace of the breath of dark wizards on you. Maybe you just went to some dark wizards places, or touched some dark magic items. You can take this thunder amulet to dissipate the breath of darkness. At the same time, if you encounter danger, it can warn you." As he said, he gently patted Harry's shoulder and signaled that he could leave. Harry Potter felt Lockhart's careful care and immediately became more favorable. He said gratefully, thank you, Professor Lockhart." At the same time, he walked briskly towards the Weasley family with 7 books and the thunder amulet in his arms. He felt that he was very lucky at the moment. He just took a photo and got 7 books and a thunder amulet. Don't be too happy. At this moment, Lockhart, hearing Harry Potter's words of gratitude, stared at the system screen that appeared in front of him and nodded slightly. Character approval, Harry Potter, 5500ths. As expected, the little wizard is easily emotional. Thinking about it, Lockhart walked to the autograph table and said to the wizards in line, "Don't worry, I will sign the new books purchased by each fan. Please line up in an orderly manner." As he spoke, he sat on the chair in front of the table, holding a feather pen in his hand, and signed the book name of the first wizard in line. 1, 2, 3, 10. Just as Lockhart was signing for the 15th wizard fan, he could vaguely hear the noise outside, which was getting louder and louder. Suddenly, Lockhart's eyes lit up, as if he knew what was going on. He signed the name of the 15th fan immediately, then extended his hand and said apologetically, "Dear fans, wait a moment. Something seems to have happened outside. I'll go out and deal with it first, and then come back to sign for everyone." With that, Lockhart walked outside, holding his wand. Chapter 21 Lockhart's Ideal World. Diagon Alley. Outside flourish and blots. "Dad, be careful of his fist. Dad, hit him in the face with your fist. Dad, be careful, he's going to attack from behind. Yes, Dad, use some strength, just like you did just now." Harry Potter held the book that Lockhart had just given him, and looked at George and Fred beside him in surprise. His father was fighting with Draco's father, but these two did not go up to help or stop them. They actually fanned the flames, which really made Harry Potter feel incredible. Or rather, he still hasn't recovered from the shock, and doesn't know whether he should stop the two from continuing to wrestle. He had an extremely disgusting impression of Lucius Malfoy when he met him for the first time. If he couldn't beat him, he would have wanted to beat him up himself. As soon as they met, the other party was very arrogant and mocked them. He pulled him over, touched the scar on his head for no reason, and began to praise the Dark Lord who killed his parents. Suddenly, Harry's eyes were burning with fire, and he wanted to kill Lucius. This is not over yet. Then, this damned bastard Lucius began to mock Hermione for being a muggle wizard, and said that the Weasley family was a pauper. This immediately aroused the anger of Ron's father, Arthur Weasley, and the two of them started fighting. Although Harry was a little worried about Arthur, but seeing Lucius being beaten, it was like eating an ice cream. It was so cool. "Well done, Uncle Arthur." Hit him hard in the face, and kick him a few more times. It's better to kick his vitals. Yes, kick him a few more times. Harry stared at a certain part between Lucius's legs, thinking silently in his heart. Suddenly, Harry suddenly found a familiar figure coming out of Flourish and Blots. It turned out to be Professor Lockhart just now. At this moment, Lockhart looked at Lucius and Arthur who were fighting like children. He almost laughed out loud. These two people really have no experience in fighting. One of you punches, I kick, then another kick, and another punch. Fighting with a child is no different. He has integrated Thor's hundreds of years of combat experience. To put it bluntly, relying on his experience alone, he can easily defeat 2 or 3 ordinary shield agents. Now, watching such a fight, he always feels a bit childish, even funny. As for the fact that these two people resorted to hand-to-hand combat instead of using magic, he was not surprised. In a public place like Diagon Alley, the Ministry of Magic does not allow the direct use of spells to fight. Whoever uses it first will definitely be held accountable. However, Lockhart glanced at the tattered books scattered on the ground and looked at the black notebook on the ground with a scrutinizing look. Then he stepped into the scene where Arthur and Lucius were fighting. With Thor's rich combat experience, it was said that it was late, but it was fast. He directly grabbed the wrists of the two people with both hands and then gently pulled and twisted them to their backs. Suddenly Lockhart, be gentle. Be gentle, be gentle, it hurts. It hurts. It hurts. Lockhart looked at the two people who were screaming in pain with indifference and said in a deep voice, "You two are pure blood families. Isn't it a bit unkind to fight outside my new book launch today? I don't think I offended you." Hearing what Lockhart said and feeling the pain from their bodies, Arthur and Lucius hurriedly said, "No, Lockhart, be gentle, it hurts." Hearing this, Lockhart slowly loosened his clasped hands, looked at the two people, and said in a slow tone, "You are both parents of children. You should set an example. Look, your children are watching the show and cheering on the side. Is this appropriate?" Hearing this, Arthur and Lucius looked at their children, saw the remaining excitement on their faces, looked at each other again, and snorted at each other. Lucius felt that he might be a little embarrassed, so he pulled Draco next to him and snorted, and walked out. However, humph. Damn half-blood. With his sensitive hearing, Lockhart heard Lucius's curse in secret. He half squinted his eyes, and looked at Lucius who was leaving, wondering what he was thinking. "I'm sorry, Professor Lockhart. I'm very sorry to disturb your new book launch." Hearing Arthur's apology, Lockhart quickly came to his senses and replied with a smile, "It's okay, Mr. Wearlie. As a professor of children, I feel that this will not have a good influence on the children. That's why I reached out to stop it. I also apologize for the pain I may have caused you just now. Please keep these." As he said, Lockhart waved the wand in his hand, and the scattered books on the ground instantly floated up, then stacked into two piles, and flew in front of Arthur. Looking at some of the worn-out books, especially the old books he had published before, Lockhart raised his eyebrows slightly. Then he noticed Arthur's embarrassed look, smiled, and looked at Arthur who opened his mouth to explain. Lockhart said directly, "Mr. Wearlie, your family can come to my new book conference today, which means you recognize me. I may have caused you some pain just now, to express my apology." As he said, he reached out and took out 7 books he wrote from the space bag. "Please accept these books." "Haha, then I'm welcome. Thank you, Professor Lockhart. It just so happens that my little daughter Ginny likes your books very much. This is definitely a very valuable gift." Seeing the floating books in front of him, Arthur's eyes lit up, and he said a few polite words and quickly put them away. Seeing this, Lockhart nodded politely, then turned around and walked towards Flourish and Blots. Maybe no one noticed that a black notebook quietly disappeared from the pile of old books scattered on the ground just now. At night, at Lockhart's home, Lockhart sat on a chair, his eyes fixed on the black notebook on the desk, or Voldemort's Horcrux. Lockhart had already made a plan for dealing with the Horcrux. Lockhart had no intention of touching this top-level black magic item. This was made by a Dark Lord who could rival Dumbledore. Who knows if there is a hidden hand in it? He will study it again after his strength improves. Now as long as it is sealed, the next year will be very peaceful, and he can also teach and study well at Hogwarts. He will not look for trouble. Nipping the danger in the bud is his principle. As for today's new book launch, it was held very smoothly. His plan was also very successful. Except for Lucius's words about half-blood wizards, Lockhart was unhappy. He hated this backward, narrow-minded, and class-fixed wizard world. The conflicts between pure blood, half-blood, and muggle wizards made him very irritable. He just wanted to study magic and acquire magical knowledge with peace of mind. Lucius's curse today made Lockhart, who had been very successful recently, wake up completely. In such a world, he wanted to do research with peace of mind. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. Studying magic requires knowledge, gold galleons, magic potions, magic materials, and so on. In such a world of discrimination, there are obstacles everywhere. These pureblood families monopolize materials and knowledge, leaving no way for a pure magic researcher like him to advance. But it doesn't matter. Everything will change. Yes, everything will change. His ideal world is a pure magical world, a world where everyone learns magic and pursues the truth. And all this will start from his first meeting with Dumbledore in 2 days. He has made a lot of preparations for this day, including Dumbledore's temptation. Lockhart touched the dark blue necklace around his neck, his eyes dim. In the new book period, follow-up reading data is extremely important. Readers who like this book are requested to pin it to the top, so that they can easily see the latest chapters. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22, Dumbledore's Question. Professor McGonagall, long time no see. Lockhart had just come out of the magic fireplace surrounded by green flames, and saw Professor McGonagall sitting on the desk opposite him, and immediately greeted him. Professor McGonagall raised her head, and looked at Lockhart, who had smooth blonde hair, and wore a dark green robe, and looked at him with the eyes of a student. Lockhart, you look a little embarrassed. Professor McGonagall stared at Lockhart with a serious look, but the clothes are quite exquisite. Professor McGonagall added. After hearing this, Lockhart smiled awkwardly. He decided not to use the magic fireplace to travel again. It seems that learning the portal magic of Kamar-Taj must be put on the agenda. Immediately, with a slight wave of his right hand, the hanging ring flashed, and a simple rune appeared in front of him, emitting a faint light. Rune, clean. With a faint light, Lockhart looked brand new, and the dust on his body was removed by magic. Professor McGonagall looked at the runes that just appeared with great interest. Although she was a little surprised, she didn't say much. The principal is waiting for you in the office. You know the location. The password is Crucible KKK, Professor. Lockhart responded politely, left Professor McGonagall's office, and walked towards the principal's office. Looking at the Hogwarts corridors and stairs that were very familiar in his memory, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. This time I came to Hogwarts to find Dumbledore, which was considered a job report before class. Before, I shared my class ideas with Dumbledore through our envelopes. Except for Dumbledore, whom I met last time. Today is the first time we met. According to convention, we will talk about the specific details of the class. However, in Lockhart's eyes, the word test is the most appropriate here. Soon, Lockhart walked to the 8th floor and stood in front of the gargoyle. He sorted out his clothes and cast a self-created spell for himself, Lockhart's Shine. With a smile on his face, showing his white teeth, and with his chest puffed out, he confidently said to the stone, "Chopstick cake." Boom. The stone beast moved to the side, and the wall behind it cracked, revealing a staircase moving upwards. Lockhart? Dumbledore's voice came from the depths of the stairs. Lockhart quickly replied, "Yes, Headmaster, it's me." Then he strode up the stairs, and walked towards the headmaster's office. When he reached the top of the stairs, he entered a spacious and beautiful circular space. Looking at the portraits of the past headmasters of Hogwarts hanging on the walls around him, Lockhart waved politely. Entering the headmaster's office, he saw a huge long table with thin legs not far away, and Dumbledore, with silver hair and half-moon lenses, was sitting behind it. "Headmaster, good morning." Lockhart stepped forward and greeted politely. "Wait a minute, you can have some tongs cake, and we'll talk after you finish this page." "Okay, Headmaster, you go ahead, don't rush." Looking at Headmaster Dumbledore, who was reading a book with his head down, Lockhart responded and looked around the room. In the whole room, in addition to the portraits of past headmasters of Hogwarts hanging everywhere, what attracted Lockhart's attention the most was a bookcase at the back. Nicholas Flamel on Alchemy 36 Ways to Use the Patronus Charm Advanced Dark Magic Knowledge. Just looking at some of the titles of the books in the bookcase, Lockhart's eyes lit up, and he wanted to open Dumbledore's bookcase immediately, borrow a few books, and read them. Unfortunately, Lockhart quickly retracted his gaze and looked at the silverware next to him, as well as some potions of various colors. Soon, Lockhart stared at a bracket next to the window. The phoenix with golden feathers, holding the bracket tightly with its claws, turned its head and stared at Lockhart with some curiosity. When their eyes met, Lockhart showed the most friendly smile in his life. His eyes were shining, and his heart was warm. This is a phoenix, which can survive for thousands of years through nirvana. Tears alone can cure most diseases in the world, and it is also the core material of many precious potions. Even if it is just one feather, it is worth dozens of gold galleons. Seeing the phoenix not far away, Lockhart subconsciously wanted to get closer. Ahem. Dumbledore coughed lightly and looked at Lockhart with shining eyes, as if reminding him of something. Lockhart immediately came back to his senses and his expression was straight, as if he had not had any evil thoughts just now. Then, watching Dumbledore close the cover of the book, his expression froze, and then he said with a smile on his face, "Principal Dumbledore, I didn't expect you to like the book I wrote too." The cover of the book was engraved with conspicuous words "Days with the Snow Monster" by Gilderoy Lockhart. The book is well written and quite interesting. Dumbledore smiled, without any concealment, and then took the book away, revealing a character profile. After seeing this, Lockhart's pupils shrank. Instead of lowering his head, he straightened his chest and showed a brighter smile on his face, as if he was hiding something. Needham Mac, male, 45 years old, lives in the Himalayas, and lives with snow monsters all year round. Damn, if this is not a test from Dumbledore, then hell. Needham Mac is the person who provided the material for the book Days with Snow Monsters. The original body stole his memory to write this book. Putting a book and a list together, even a fool would know that Dumbledore must be suspicious. I just don't know how much Dumbledore knows. Principal, what do you want to know about snow monsters? The living characters in the book are right in front of you, Lockhart said self-deprecatingly with some humor. Haha, speaking of snow monsters, I really want to learn about it. Dumbledore laughed, raised the book at hand and asked, I thought the best way to deal with snow monsters is the fiery curse, but I didn't expect that the book is completely different from what I thought. Principal, in this regard, snow monsters are indeed different from what most wizards think. This is because snow monsters have lived in ice and snow for a long time, and have extremely strong magical defense capabilities. Ordinary spells can't cause any harm to them. At the same time, in the ice and snow, the power of the fiery curse will be reduced, and it is not the best choice. To deal with snow monsters, I personally recommend using the tripping curse. Although it is a small evil curse, the snow monster moves slowly and has shorter legs. It is easy to fall because of the tripping curse. Whether it is escaping, capturing, or even killing, it is the only choice. It seems that you are really experienced in this area. Dumbledore smiled after hearing this. It seems that it was right to choose you for the defense against the dark arts course. Hearing this, Lockhart smiled and didn't say much. Since he knew that this teaching job was risky, and he was not stupid, he must digest the knowledge in his memory. Stolen memories are still memories, and knowledge can't be fake. Speaking of which, stealing memories seems to be a shortcut to learning knowledge. The thought flashed through his mind, and Lockhart kept it deep in his heart. In the new book period, the follow-up reading data is extremely important. Readers who like this book are requested to pin it to the top, so that you can easily see the latest chapters. Chapter 23 Lockhart is crazy about adding his own stuff. Ahem. Dumbledore coughed lightly, and Lockhart reluctantly withdrew his gaze from the phoenix again. Lockhart, let's talk about your ideas for teaching young wizards. Although he was interrupted by Dumbledore, Lockhart couldn't help but take another look, and then said seriously, Principal, do you know what the most important part of taking an adventure is? Without waiting for Dumbledore to answer, Lockhart continued, that is to collect enough information, because risks may be triggered at any time, and sufficient information can allow us to calmly deal with unknown dangers. I have collected information about the defense against the dark arts professors in recent years, but I found that Lockhart paused, reorganized his words, and wanted to express his meaning in a tactful way. Maybe because of the curse, the foundation of the young wizards is too weak and needs to be consolidated. So, my idea is that it is best to increase the hours of defense against the dark arts in the early stage, so that they can master as much knowledge as possible. Dumbledore nodded and gave Lockhart a look to continue. In order to enable the young wizards to quickly digest the knowledge learned in class, Lockhart said, I suggest that we can add practical courses, and at the same time, improve their combat experience. This can be considered, but we must pay attention to the safety of the young wizards. Dumbledore instructed. Okay, I will definitely pay attention to this. Lockhart responded and continued to talk about his ideas. I think that the 5th year wizards are facing the Owls exam, and they are under the heaviest pressure, so they must be repeatedly asked to review the knowledge. My idea is to let them do a lot of tests and papers, and strengthen the knowledge for the exam. Well, this suggestion can be tried. Dumbledore raised his eyebrows, as if he thought this suggestion was very good. The 6th and 7th graders have less pressure, and are about to graduate. So we can relax them, and let them look for employment opportunities outside. Dumbledore nodded, and Lockhart continued. The 1st and 2nd grade wizards may have just come into contact with magic. If they are exposed to too much serious knowledge, it is easy for them to hate learning magic. So I suggest that we can add more practical courses, to increase their interest in magic. Lockhart subconsciously raised his voice, as if he was a little excited. So, you chose to use your 7 books as textbooks? Dumbledore asked. Lockhart smiled awkwardly and said seriously, of course, that's what I meant at the beginning. We should learn magic based on interest, not purely based on learning. The books I wrote are very interesting and informative. The more he talked, the more confident he became, as if it was exactly what he had thought before. As a textbook, it's perfect. Dumbledore nodded, seeming to agree with the point of view expressed by Lockhart. Seeing this, Lockhart was a little excited and continued, little wizards in the 1st and 2nd grades can pursue the fun of magic. But wizards in the 3rd and 4th grades are different. They have been exposed to a lot of magic. At this time, we can emphasize knowledge, and practical courses can be reduced. We must provide them with more magical knowledge. We must make them indulge in the ocean of knowledge and unable to extricate themselves. Hearing this, Dumbledore nodded. As a professor, he agreed with this point very much. It is definitely good for students to learn more knowledge. Dumbledore's approving look immediately made Lockhart excited, and he began to talk incessantly. I have another suggestion. We must focus on training those outstanding young wizards. The efficiency in which ordinary wizards and outstanding young wizards absorb knowledge is completely different. There is a world of difference. As for the wizards I know a young wizard who is only in the 1st grade, but she has already mastered the making a polyjuice potion. Even many adult wizards are still unable to master advanced potions. Therefore, I think we should focus on training those young wizards with better talents. We can convene a meeting of the Lockhart Club on this point. At this point, Lockhart's tone became more and more excited, and he began to add his own opinions frantically. I think that those excellent young wizards who have digested the knowledge in class can learn new knowledge. I can teach them some of my own adventures, some spells I have mastered, and my research ideas on magic. At the same time, we can work together around a magic project, such as studying an unknown rune or an unknown magic metal, to cultivate everyone's research awareness and research ability. Regarding some magic projects, our professors publish their own papers and add the names of the young wizards so that they can get a wonderful resume. Also, it would be best if the professors of potions and spells can also join in so that the young wizards can experience the abilities of top wizards. It would be best if you, Principal Dumbledore, could also join in so that they can see what the world's top wizards are like. Faced with Lockhart's crazy addition of private goods, Dumbledore's face froze slightly. The more he listened, the more he felt that this Professor Lockhart did not seem to be cultivating excellent students, but seemed to be making these excellent young wizards work as workers, and seemed to include them, the professors. Ahem. Ahem. Dumbledore coughed several times, interrupting Lockhart's endless chatter. Faced with Dumbledore's interruption, Lockhart stopped talking with some regret, as he still had many ideas that he hadn't said. Some novel magic projects urgently needed excellent wizards to participate. However, he still asked shamelessly, "Professor Dumbledore, do you think my proposal just now is particularly good? I think it will be more effective in practice. If you can participate, I believe the little wizards in Hogwarts will be very excited." Faced with a shameless Lockhart, Dumbledore hesitated, but was a little embarrassed to refuse directly, and said, "There is no rush for this. You can try to convene a club first, if those little wizards and professors are willing to participate." Hearing this, Lockhart immediately showed a bright smile. He seemed to see a large number of little wizards and Hogwarts professors studying runes, magic materials in the Marvel world, Kamar-Taj magic, etc. with him. As for whether this knowledge will be leaked, he is not worried. He is not stupid. What he can study must be within the scope of basics. He will definitely not study advanced knowledge. Even if he does, they cannot understand it without the foundation. He will not stop the leakage of this knowledge. He will even promote the spread of this new magical knowledge in the wizarding world. A brand new magic system is bound to stir up the current wizarding world, where some classes are rigidified. And in the chaos, new opportunities will be born. Whoever can seize the biggest opportunity can influence, and even control the entire wizarding world. And who else but me can be such a person? Lockhart thought silently in his heart. Then, Dumbledore's sudden words brought Lockhart back to his senses. "Lockhart, I have a request about Harry Potter. In the new book period, the follow-up data is extremely important. Readers who like this book are requested to pin it to the top for easy access to the latest chapters." Chapter 24 Dumbledore's Surprise. "Harry Potter, you should know his special identity." Dumbledore's face flashed a trace of distress, as if he was confiding in Lockhart. "I believe you are an excellent professor. So, I think you should pay more attention to Harry. He is a good seedling worth cultivating." Hearing this, Lockhart nodded heavily, as if he agreed with Dumbledore's point of view. Indeed, Harry's family has made great contributions to the entire wizarding world. Then Dumbledore seemed to suddenly think of something and asked, "I remember you met Harry Potter a few days ago. What do you think of him? Although he is a little restrained, I can feel his courage." Lockhart praised loudly without hesitation. "Harry's magic level is far beyond that of ordinary little wizards. It is worthy of being the offspring of Lillian Potter. He has perfectly inherited Potter's bloodline and Lilla's intelligence. Well, Lockhart can barely be regarded as a classmate of Snape and James Potter. It's just that the two sides are 2 grades apart. When James Potter had already made a big name in Hogwarts, Lockhart was just a little wizard. As a student of Ravenclaw, he was unwilling to have more contact with the little lion of Gryffindor and the little snake of Slytherin. Or, the original body was a little jealous of the famous Potter, jealous of his fame in the whole Hogwarts. So, the relationship between the two sides can only be said to be average. And this did not prevent him from praising Harry Potter. In this case, you must pay attention to Harry's safety. Dumbledore mentioned it as if inadvertently. "I heard that you gave Harry Potter 7 of your books and a magic amulet before. What is the function of this amulet?" Dumbledore's tone revealed a hint of curiosity. "Can it resist deadly danger like the iron armor charm?" Faced with Dumbledore's question, Lockhart was not surprised. He had previously performed wandless spells and given Harry Potter a magic amulet at Flourish and Blott's bookstore to pave the way for this moment. But it was a pity that Dumbledore seemed not interested in his wandless spells. Thinking about it, Lockhart directly rejected it and said, "No, Headmaster, this magic amulet only serves as a warning. I felt a trace of dark magic on Harry before, so I gave him the magic amulet I made, which can dissipate this trace of dark magic. At the same time, it can warn him in time when he encounters danger in the future." Hearing Lockhart's introduction, Dumbledore nodded slowly. He had heard that Lockhart gave Harry Potter a magic item before, and he was worried that it might be inappropriate. After all, the changes of some old friends made him suspicious of Lockhart. So he secretly experimented and found that the effect was indeed as Lockhart said. However, what surprised him was, "Really? It seems that you have grown a lot in these years and have learned to make magic items independently. Can you give me one of your works?" Dumbledore's face revealed a hint of curiosity. In his opinion, the function of the amulet is nothing special. Dumbledore can also make magic items with similar functions himself, but the runes engraved on the amulet aroused his curiosity. This rune is completely different from the ancient runes he studied, but he didn't have enough materials at the moment, and he couldn't find out what the problem was. But with his intuition, trained by years of studying prophecy and divination, he could feel that it was unusual. Very unusual. Lockhart smiled brightly when he heard Dumbledore's request. Very good, very good. If Dumbledore didn't bring it up, I'm afraid he would have to think of other ways to let him see the rune. How can we promote a brand new magic system without Dumbledore, the greatest white devil in our world? As his thoughts turned, Lockhart's face showed a trace of joy, as if it was recognized by Dumbledore. It is Lockhart's honor that the headmaster can collect my work. As he said, Lockhart waved his wand lightly, and a piece of brown paulownia wood appeared in front of the two. Then, a deep blue magic power surged from Lockhart's body, along his limbs, and spread like the wand in his hand. A deep blue light bloomed at the tip of the wand, as Lockhart continued to wave the wand. In front of the two slightly complex runes emitting dark blue light appeared. Rune Purification. Rune Exorcism. Under Lockhart's control, the two dark blue runes slowly merged into the brown paulownia wood in front of him. Soon, a magic amulet was formed. As Lockhart waved his wand lightly, the amulet floated in front of Dumbledore. Looking at the amulet in front of him, Dumbledore's eyes revealed a thoughtful look. Put the runes aside for now, and continue to study them later. He just felt a hint of danger from Lockhart's magic. This was far beyond his expectations. Since Voldemort's death, he hasn't felt the breath of danger for a long time. And today, he actually felt it from a junior before, which made him a little surprised. The doubts in his heart before were reduced a lot. Having the power to make him feel danger, even if it is very weak, should not be enough to steal and cleanse the memories of others. It's not worth it. With such power, ordinary snow monsters will be easy to deal with. Why spend so much effort? It's a thankless job. This is totally illogical. He has studied it. If he is not a master of memory spells, it is difficult to produce such a clean and neat effect. Even he can only be sure that Needham has been cleansed of his memory, and it is difficult to find out the rest. At this time, Lockhart didn't know what Dumbledore was thinking. He just hoped that the rune in front of him could tempt Dumbledore and let him devote himself to the study of runes. Otherwise, he would not show the rune directly in front of him and reveal the whole process of making the magic amulet. The reason for doing so is, on the one hand, to use Dumbledore's power to speed up the mastery of runes. On the other hand, some of the plans later can also be carried out by taking advantage of the situation. Of course, if he knew that it was only because of the transformed magic power in his body that Dumbledore's suspicion was reduced, he would probably be overjoyed. His current magic power is the product of the fusion and transformation of prototype of Thunder God's power and his original magic power. Ordinary spells can increase by 80%, and thunder spells can increase by at least twice. Moreover, the spells he casts have a kind of corrosiveness and sensitivity that ordinary wizards do not have. If a wizard is injured by his spell and cannot remove his magic in time, he will probably spend the rest of his life in extreme pain. Of course, as the power of Asgard's god of thunder, although it is in its embryonic form, it still retains the strengthening effect on the body. Although his current physical strength is much worse than that of Kamar-Taj's melee wizard, it is much stronger than the average shield agent. Lockhart, what kind of ancient runes do these two runes belong to? Why don't I have any impression? Hearing a hint of curiosity in Dumbledore's tone, Lockhart showed a hint of joy between his brows. The fish is finally hooked. In the new book period, follow-up reading data is extremely important. Readers who like this book are requested to pin it to the top, so that they can easily see the latest chapters. Chapter 25, Hogwarts Express. Hogwarts, the headmaster's office. Dumbledore watched Lockhart walk out of the headmaster's office, waved his wand, and closed the door. What do you think? Dumbledore asked the portraits of past headmasters next to him. He doesn't look like a dark wizard. The portrait of Headmaster Delis Devant next to him jumped out and said, a typical Ravenclaw wizard, extremely intelligent, with a strong desire for research. A qualified professor. HMPH. The portrait of Headmaster Black snorted coldly. Of course you can say he is good. He is from your Ravenclaw college. I feel that he is more suitable for Slytherin college. Look, he was thinking about pulling Dumbledore into his club just now. Okay, stop talking. The portrait of the previous headmaster Armando Dupert interrupted. Listen to what Albus says first. Looking at the gaze of Headmaster Dupert, Dumbledore said thoughtfully, at present, there is no problem. He is a genius and a good seedling. The runes he talked about just now really opened my eyes. At least one thing is certain, he is different from Quirrell, and has nothing to do with Voldemort. At the end, there was a hint of smile in Dumbledore's words. Anyway, Voldemort is the most difficult one, and the changes of his old friend can be investigated slowly later. However, there is another point that makes him feel a little surprised. He was going to explore Lockhart's thoughts by absorbing his mind. Just as he was about to cast the spell, he found that his mental power seemed to have encountered an obstacle. This obstacle was very weak, and he could break through it with a little effort, so as to know Lockhart's thoughts. But this would definitely arouse the other party's vigilance. After all, it is not a very polite thing to cast a divine mind on a wizard. Especially if it is discovered, it will only arouse the hostility of the other party. Therefore, Dumbledore chose to give up, and at the same time he felt a little emotional. With such a clever method, it seems that Lockhart has indeed had a lot of adventures in recent years. Well, Lockhart's performance before has reduced Dumbledore's inner doubts a lot. I think there are some things to deal with. You can talk about it first, Dumbledore said after thinking for a while. As he said that, he stretched out his right hand, and the phoenix by the window flew up and landed on his arm. Bang! Exclamation mark. Then, a golden flame appeared with a bang, and disappeared with Dumbledore's figure. Hogsmeade, Lockhart's home. Clean it up. Lockhart walked out of the magic fireplace at home, and cast a cleaning spell on himself again. Seeing the original dust disappear, Lockhart secretly decided that he must study Kamar-Taj's teleportation magic. Although it is not as suitable for fighting as apparition, it is definitely the best choice for traveling. Even if he can never learn it again, he must make a magic item with a constant cleaning spell. Teleporting through the magic fireplace. If you are not careful, you will be covered with ash. This is unacceptable to Lockhart, who is a bit of a clean freak and pays attention to his appearance. He said, if you can do without the magic fireplace, then you must not use it. Then, he returned to his study. Touching the necklace hanging on his neck, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. The preparations made in advance really worked. Since we know in advance that Dumbledore is good at capturing divine thoughts, we must find a way to guard against it. The function of this necklace is very simple, which is to warn. As long as it senses that someone is forcibly using the ability to absorb divine thoughts or mental powers, the necklace will emit light for everyone to see. Although it does not have a strong defensive effect, it is very effective against people like Dumbledore. A gentleman can deceive others with his own methods. If a person like Dumbledore is not discovered, it will be fine. Once there is a possibility of discovery, he will be too considerate of other people's thoughts and choose to stop the action. The reality is the same. He only felt the necklace slightly touched, and there was no reaction. If it were Voldemort, humph, you actually have magical item that can resist the absorption of divine thoughts. Cruciatus. Lockhart's mind suddenly appeared the scene of the noseless Voldemort, who did not listen to the explanation of his men and directly cast the Cruciatus curse, and a smile suddenly floated on his face. However, there was one thing that disappointed Lockhart. Before, he saw Dumbledore asking him about runes, and he was very happy in his heart. He quickly introduced the runes eloquently. Results: the more he introduced, the more excited he became. However, Dumbledore didn't seem to feel much, just nodded or praised from time to time. A bit perfunctory. Such a good thing, shouldn't everyone like it? Lockhart thought so. No, the great cause of studying runes must have Dumbledore's participation. Otherwise, without the endorsement of the White Lord Dumbledore, he alone would be besieged by the group of pureblood families before he even started. Although Lockhart looked down on the group of pureblood families, their strength and influence could not be denied. They would watch a brand new magic system affect their status and rights. Nonsense. Lockhart thought about it from another perspective. who dared to disturb his magic research and ruin his plan. He had to kill him in person with his wand. Even if he couldn't beat him directly, wasn't there an indirect way? The nuclear bombs in the Muggle world were not just lying around. Even if the nuclear bombs didn't work, he was sure to get machine guns, rocket launchers, and high explosives. Of course, Lockhart also thought about it. He was not as arrogant as Grindelwald. If he really did such a thing in front of the magic world, he would probably be like Grindelwald, facing the siege of the entire wizarding world, and even Dumbledore would have to take action. What's more, the magic world also has prophecies, divination, which is unscientific but very magical. No, when he thought of this, Lockhart felt a sense of urgency in his heart. Later, he must get close to Trelawney, the professor of divination at Hogwarts. Platform 9 3/4. Lockhart was wearing a common wizard robe, holding a suitcase in his left hand, and holding his wand in his right hand. He stood in the waiting area next to him and waited quietly. Although it is said that you can take the magic fireplace directly to Hogwarts, Lockhart clearly expressed his refusal to the magic fireplace. Well, in fact, Lockhart is interested in the Hogwarts Express. On the one hand, it is because in his previous life, the Hogwarts Express is one of the most classic scenes for many Harry Potter fans. He experienced it himself, which was considered to be a dream of his previous life. On the other hand, he wanted to explore the operating principle of the magic train. Because as far as he knew, the magic and technology in the Harry Potter world were conflicting. In short, there is magic, but no technology, and there is technology, but no magic. Therefore, Hogwarts, including many wizard families, do not have Muggle technology equipment. I heard that the trains at Hogwarts were transformed through magic, and he wanted to learn from the experience. After returning to the Marvel world, maybe he can shine. So, Lockhart came to the waiting platform early to wait for the train. Before long, the waiting platform was filled with a large number of Hogwarts students. The little wizards in the first and second grades may be young, and their parents are accompanying them. But most of the students in the fourth and fifth grades are waiting alone with their luggage, and their parents have left. At this moment, Lockhart cast a spell on himself to reduce his presence early. These little wizards are too annoying. Especially the little wizards who keep chirping. They are not cute at all. I wonder if he likes quiet. Waited for a while again. Exclamation mark. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of the train arriving at the station came to his ears. Lockhart looked at the slightly worn out Hogwarts Express, which was mainly black with red, and his mouth curled up slightly. He watched a large number of young wizards pouring in, and stood there quietly, with a complicated look in his eyes. This is the atmosphere of school. What a familiar feeling. In his previous life, when the university had just started, a large number of students dragging a lot of luggage could be seen at the school gate, pouring in like water. Unfortunately, in the 2 years before his death, for safety reasons, the school issued a policy to limit the flow of people, so it was rarely seen. Seeing it again today, although it was in another world, I still felt a sense of intimacy from the bottom of my heart. This may be what it means to be a role model for others. Although I'm now teaching the Defense Against the Dark Arts course. Lockhart watched quietly. He saw the restraint of the first year wizards and the excitement of the second year wizards. At the same time, he also observed the reluctance and nostalgia of the senior students for their holiday life. This scene seemed familiar and I missed it. My heart was clear, neither sad nor happy. In the new book period, follow-up reading data is extremely important. Readers who like this book are requested to pin it to the top, so that you can easily see the latest chapters. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.